Hello, and welcome to another exciting episode of the Comic Book Chronicles. I am your host, Roddykat, and you can find me at Roddykat on Twitter. You can find me at News Nerds Need on Twitter. Excuse me. Ooh. You can find me on CB Caps on Instagram.
With Columbia down the way.
Coffee got to me for a second. And the sound effect that you've heard comes from none other than our man in Brooklyn, one agent_70 on Twitter and Instagram.
What's up, everybody?
Yeah. And this is the Comic Book Chronicles, which you can find on the Cold Slither Podcast Network. That's cspn.us.
Do it today.
You can also find us on your podcast portal place of choice, whether it be Google Play, Apple iTunes, aka Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or the Cold Slither Podcast Network's SoundCloud page.
Yes, make sure to hit like, subscribe, leave us 5-star reviews. You can even do that on Spotify now, even though we're not up to date on Spotify just yet. And make sure to listen in every week.
Yeah. You can also find us, speaking of which, recording every Thursday night on 9:30-ish p.m. Eastern Standard Time on the YouTube channel of The Click Nation. That's youtube.com/TheClickNation and twitch.tv/Comic Book Chronicles.
Again, hit like and subscribe and hit the notification button to let you know when we are on live.
Yeah, and definitely, if you could, subscribe to the Twitch channel. Like I said, we do still plan to do some more streaming on stuff, but we would like to get to a certain point so we can kind of add some other shows up that come across from the past. So, just a little thing. So, with that, folks, we're getting to the show, which we're going to start off with a recap of Chapter 5 of the Book of Boba Fett. Let's see.
Oh, I just closed my tab with it. I gotta open it up again.
That's cool. I can start off, but the name of the episode is fittingly the Return of the Return of the Mandalorian in true Star Wars fashion, because there got to be a return of something. If it's not a return, it's a revenge. And yeah. It's very much what people were speculating last week, and what was pretty much heavily hinted at the end of last week's episode.
But I think it's more than what we were expecting in many ways.
This is true. Yeah, this is true. And yeah, we'll get to one part about it when
we'll get into one of those many ways in a second.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, it starts off with a meatpacking plant with some aliens doing some business, and in walks one Din Djarin, aka the Mandalorian, complete with the whistle that I'm sure folks know all well and good at this point. He's basically there for a bounty, not surprisingly. I guess part of the surprising part comes in a minute, because he makes his way through to the person he's looking for, who's like, that ain't me. I'm looking for looking for, what's his name? Cabo Baez, I guess his name is. And dude's like, I don't know. I'd let you know when he comes back. And then Mando just shows the bounty with his hand, and he's like, it's not me. I'm like, okay, your picture's right there. But
yeah, it's funny. Long gone are the days of the wanted poster.
Right.
And it's funnier because obviously this is a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away, but in our current age of smartphones and everyone basically having a camera on their phone and being able to look at pictures on their phone, it's kind of tough to be like, hey man, that's not me. And then someone's just like, you mean this isn't you? And like holding up your picture in front of them. Yeah. So that's essentially what Din Djarin does.
Right. And this alien tried it because he was like, nah, that's not me. It could be, that could be anybody basically on his own. So of course, in true Mando fashion, he was like, I could bring you in warm, I could bring you in cold, and then a fight breaks out with some other folks that some of the other workers, which ends up in two things happening. One, Din breaks out the Darksaber, which, if you forgot from the Mandalorian season 2, he ends up getting he ends up copping from Moff Gideon, in the proper way, and ends up Barney Fifing himself in his leg with, but also ends up taking in his bounty very cold because he sliced him in half with the Darksaber.
Pretty much. I was very surprised that he took it that far, but I guess he was he was in that much pain and in that much frustration.
Mm-hmm. Right, because he's usually more controlled about it, or for lack of a better word. So yeah, I guess his frustration with that and what happened was like, fuck it. Plus, he didn't have Grogu with him. I think that's what it was. He didn't have his center with him.
No.
If Grogu wasn't with him, he probably would have been like, all right, I'm gonna calm down, I'm gonna chill. But no, so
it's possible. So as Roddykat said, Mando does in fact get his man and tries to collect on the bounty, and then essentially once he collects on the it's actually not. What's implied is that he's not collecting on the bounty per se, but is in fact collecting on another price on this person's head.
Right.
That was my understanding.
One would argue this was part one of a side quest. He was basically using this to get some information that he wanted to get to another point.
Right. So, and the information he's on the lookout for is trying to get to the relocated covert, and this is really where the spoilers really need to be the spoiler bell needs to be rung, because I think everything that we talked about up to this point is spoiler ridden, but definitely not something that's going to affect how you watch it. But any discussion of the upcoming part, which is really like exposition heavy, is going to require the spoiler bell. So here comes serious Book of Boba Fett episode, was it 5?
Yes.
Episode 5, and Mandalorian, especially the Mandalorian spoilers coming in hot and heavy in 3, 2, 1.
Right. So he finds the convert he finds the armorer who we last saw in the season. I don't think she showed up in season 1, because I think the last time we saw him or her in a figure of note in Mandalorian history, well, a figure of legacy note, I guess, was in season 1. So the armorer and Paz Vizsla are both here, and some other Mandalorians are here, but these are the two of note. The armorer patches up Din, I guess, and then gives her the Beskar spear to melt down.
I was about to say, hold that thought.
Okay.
When the injury happens, you know what my first thought was?
What's that?
Hey, Mando, you never heard of back to spray? And the next thing you know...
Actually, I thought about that too.
The next thing you know, guess what this particular... what Paz Vizsla has in order to help out Din Djarin, right? So I just thought, just as a quick aside, I don't want to derail this particular recap, but as a quick aside, it was literally the first thing out of my... I'm sitting by myself watching this morning.
No,
not this morning, yesterday morning.
No, that's a great point. You are absolutely right, because I thought that exact same thing.
Right, it's like, what was that on the Razor Crest too? Like, you never had a little...
That was the other thing until that got brought up. I was like, oh right, pretty much everything he had was on his old ship, which got blown up. So
right,
yeah.
So like, I understood that, but I was like, you know what? Yeah, that's kind of something. It's kind of like Banaka. Like, if you're one of those Banaka people, you always have it on you. So.
Or at the very least, like he's got pouches and stuff. Like you would at least have like a little field medic kit or
Yeah,
something.
he's Rob Liefeld Star Wars dream. But anyway,
Pretty much.
Getting back to the recap. Go ahead.
So yeah, so he gets patched up and the Beskar spear that he got from season 2 from Ahsoka and I can't remember the other character's name, but regardless, got melted down and made into a nice little care package for Grogu, which was cute because it was even in the shape of his head.
Yeah, I was about to say we know. Well, I don't remember the character's name, but it's Diana Lee Inosanto's character.
Right,
that's who is wielding the Beskar spear.
Exactly, and then it gets into well, I guess this kind of came out before that because I think the armorer asked how did he get that big gash in his leg, and he said it was because of the Darksaber, and then there was that big whole conversation about well, first to get patched up, then there was a conversation about the Darksaber, which history we know of, and spoiler alerts for these trials because the armor ends up going into basically a real brief kind of catch up for folks or for the Clone Wars season, well, basically I guess season 5 and 7, I guess, because I can't remember when the first part that happened with Satine and whatnot. And both Katan's name is mentioned, but definitely season 7 because I know at the end of season 7 that's when all that stuff went down on
right. Interestingly, no one has actually said up until now the name of their group, which was Death Watch.
Correct.
No one has said that. Not even Bo-Katan and the character, the other two Mandalorians that were riding with her, including the WWE wrestler.
Right.
Yeah, I mean they all give knowing glances when it comes to understanding what faction Mando is actually a part of.
Correct.
But
he doesn't also know either. So,
well, I'm sorry.
I said, but he doesn't also know either because he was never told when he was found by them. He was never more than likely never told that, hey, this is what this is.
Right. This is called Death Watch.
Right.
So
right.
But
and all the stuff that happened with Maul and during the sieges of Mandalore and with Pre Vizsla and all that kind of stuff. So all that stuff kind of gets glanced over here by the armorer. And again, like I said, Bo-Katan is mentioned and actually mentioned as a cautionary tale because of everything that had to happen in the closed world with her and the way she ended up getting the Darksaber and her rule and what ended up happening in that, which was the Night of 1,000 Tears, which was the operation that Moff Gideon was a part of. And Moff Gideon got brought up also and saying that basically saying like, hey, he's still alive, but he should have been killed for what he did. And there was even a cutscene that some people were saying that was reminiscent of the Terminator, because you get cut to basically shots from that night where Mandalore gets blown to hell, and K2 robots are kind of roaming around looking for survivors or whatever the case may be. So yeah, it's that. Also, it's worth pointing out that if I'm not mistaken, the Mandalorian is on a halo, which I know is a ring world and is a thing that's that is theoretical in the world, but it's going to be a halo because I've played Halo.
That's funny.
But it's also a thing that's also shown up in Star Wars before. I believe in Clone Wars. Now that I think about it, I think that was like season 6 or something like that. I don't remember. But regardless, this planet where he has shown up in Star Wars before, so it's not like this is a brand new thing. Anywho, like I said, the armor Darksaber stuff that gets brought back up. So, and I'm pretty sure that's going to come back up. Now, the thing that kind of is funny to me is two things. Like, why did he even use the Darksaber in the first place? But two, which this part I actually get. So after the Beskar spear gets melted down, he gets his little care package for Grogu, and they start.
What do you think it is?
Huh?
What do you think it is?
Probably armor.
Yeah, I was thinking chainmail.
Yeah. Yeah, somebody was saying it was like it's Mithril, it's Beskar Mithril, and I'm saying like, yeah, that makes it because especially with all the rings.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
gonna be a Mithril shirt. That's funny.
So I'm like, okay, if that's being the case, that's gonna sell a lot of toys regardless. So yeah, so after that, this is when Paz Vizsla decides that he wants to take the Darksaber from Den, and of course you have to win it by combat, and then they have a little little spar. And this part was kind of weird to me after this. So they spar, then ended up getting the upper hand, didn't kill him. And then the armor is like, did you take off your helmet? Because that's a thing with that particular sect of Mandalorians. And Paz is like, nope, never. And then she asked Din Djarin, which we know he has, and he hesitates for a minute and says, yeah, he has. And then she's like, well, you're no longer a Mandalorian, and by peace. And then,
Right.
well, not by well, basically by a piece. But then he's like, well, what can I do to atone for this? And she sent him basically put him on another side quest or another quest, which presumably at this point is probably where we're going to find him in season 3. I'm assuming like this is basically setting up what he's going to be doing in season 3. Uh, um, but we don't know, which also brings up another question that we'll get into later on. But
Well, my understanding was that that he has no way to redeem himself because the way to redeem himself is now gone because the mines under Mandalore or were destroyed by the Empire.
Right.
So that was my impression. But ultimately, what we get here is a little bit more clarification of the Children of the Watch, this group of foundlings. This is in addition to what we've learned about Death Watch and the culture of Mandalore, at least for those of us who haven't read any of the literature or the novelizations or even the comic books with regard to the new or at least the current continuity of Star Wars and how that reflects the developments on Mandalore and Mandalorian culture. For the most part, anyone who's watched the Clone Wars cartoon has seen even the Death Watch hardcore people like Pre Vizsla and even Bo-Katan when she was a member of Death Watch. They all took their helmets off. Right. But we don't know if this is a rule, and it seems to be implied that this is a rule for the foundlings, because what's implied is that these foundlings are actually not of Mandalore. Correct. And are kind of indoctrinated, and so they're told not to take off their helmets.
Right. I mean, even Boba Fett has taken off. I mean, he's has taken off his, or at least more recently, not in the beginning. When we first seen him a long time ago, but we've seen him take off his helmet, just not caring. But
right.
Yeah,
but especially in the cartoons, we're used to seeing Pre Vizsla, Bo-Katan, take off their helmets left and right, and they're supposed to be the hardcore Death Watch people.
Right. Which kind of made me wonder. It's like, well, okay, because I know there's definitely a couple of groups. We don't want to have to get into the whole into it because I suspect this is probably going to come back up at some other point when we talk about the Mandalorian 3. But there are definitely different sects of Mandalorians. Like there was the pacifist ones. I think they that we did see during that's like Satine Kryze.
Right.
And then there was these people who were on Concordia, who was like the armor and Death Watch and all these people. But I think there's probably another sect also outside of that. It's all a whole thing.
Right.
Regardless,
but like I said, it's all in addition to that. Exactly. Because what we can't do at this point is really rely that much on what we've seen before and really take in some new information with regards to this particular area or sect of Mandalorians and their culture. So that's just a little bit of a little bit of information that we can glean from where we have come so far in these shows. Right. And so at this point, where are we now?
So, okay, so one quick point before we go, because this is a quite paced episode, but we don't have to actually go through beat by beat. But there was a part that I forgot to mention before this was that the armorer and Din did a little sparring session to kind of help train him use the Darksaber more effectively, because obviously, as we saw, at the beginning of the episode, he was not doing good with it, which is why he used it in the first place. I don't know, but still, regardless. And she was also going through the same motions that Kanan used to teach oh shoot, what's her name? Sabine, how to use the Darksaber in Rebels. And there was also a thing we were talking before the show that the Darksaber was feeling heavy to Din Djarin, and also the same as Sabine when she was trying to wield it. And there's a thing about that they don't necessarily get to, but is the thing that's been called back to regardless. Now then, we can kind of get back to the thing. So Din leaves, tries to board a ship to Tatooine. Apparently, there's nonstop flights to Tatooine on this galactic cruiser. He had to surrender his weapons, which obviously he didn't want to do, but he ended up getting them back. Because he doesn't have the Razor Crest, he has to fly commercial, as I saw somebody said.
Right. I think they actually say that.
Do they? I don't remember them saying
that. No, they don't say that, but right. You can't get on they basically say you can't get on a commercial flight with weapons.
Correct. Yeah, so that's what's implied. Yeah, he definitely said that. And and so he pretty much surrendered all of his armor, all of his stuff, except for his jetpack, which has weapons on it. It pretty much has a rocket launcher on the back of it. So surprisingly, he didn't have to give that up, but whatever. So he got onto the ship, took the trip to Tatooine. This little rodent kid, in front of him kind of reminded him of Grogu. So he looked at the little care back at skin, got to Tatooine, got all his stuff back, luckily, because I thought something was going to happen with that.
Yeah. That was a red herring. Yeah, that was a red herring. It's like TSA just, bungled that particular transport, right?
Right, exactly. It was like, and then he was just gonna have to try to hunt folks down to see to get his stuff back, but that didn't happen, luckily. So get back to Tatooine. He ends up going back to Peli's shop, who we saw was the person that fixed up the Razor Crest in Mandalorian season 1.
Amy Sedaris is getting some extended life on this character.
Yeah, indeed. Yeah, including her. I guess she had a kind of quote unquote cameo like a couple of episodes back, just kind of a walkthrough.
Right. Well, I mean, that was a tease of her appearance in this episode.
Right, exactly.
So getting to this part, which is a big callback. Yes. We're going to get a big callback in this section of the episode where. Essentially we find Mando on Tatooine, and he's been called there, right? And what he's been called to do is to, basically check out a ship that Peli Motto has been, has gotten for him, because he's looking to replace the Razor Crest.
Right.
And Mando is a creature of habit. He wants his gunship. He wants some room. He wants some place to stretch out in a ship. Instead, what he finds is what Peli Motto has for him is an N1 starfighter. If that doesn't mean anything to you, it's probably because I don't think it was ever actually noted in the movies. But in fact, it is the starfighter that is native to the Navy of Naboo.
Mm-hmm.
And you will remember these are the starfighters that are scrambled when the Trade Federation is trying to do the deed around Naboo, and that is what little annoying Anakin, as opposed to teenage annoying Anakin, little annoying Anakin is flying one of these N1 starfighters, and by the will of the Force, is apparently lucky enough to take down that Trade Federation droid remote control station.
Mm-hmm.
So, this is that style starfighter. It's not the Queen's ship, the one that looks like an SR-71 Blackbird. This is that little starfighter that was mostly yellow, but in this case, it's actually in a lot of pieces.
Although Padme ends up flying a similar one in one of those Voices of Destiny or Destiny shorts that they did a while back. So she did end up getting a chrome one, like more like that one, like this one.
Oh, but this one actually was yellow originally because
Correct.
what we find what we see is as uh as Pelimato says, well, it's not much to look at now, but with Mando's help and the money that he's got, he can actually put together something pretty cool. And that's a chunk of this episode is them wrenching away, putting in the wrench time on this N1 Starfighter.
I know, right? It's almost like a training montage because you feel like there should have been a little bit more music going behind it. But also, it's worth noting that Mando says it's a piece of junk, which kind of felt like a callback to what Luke said about the Falcon.
Kind of, yeah.
So,
And what we find out is they end up getting a lot of their parts through the help of Jawas, who are literally stealing these parts off of the Pike ships that are finding their way into Mos Eisley. As a result of the Pikes kind of butting into this particular part of Jabba the Hutt's criminal empire,
including one piece that was originally found in a garbage in a garbage chute in episode 4. You remember the big long pipe that they brought in for him?
Is that I knew that looked familiar?
Yeah,
is that what that was?
Mm-hmm.
That's funny.
So, and they called it something. I don't remember what they called it, but I was like, okay, it's that thing from the garbage chute. Great.
That's funny.
We also find out, and I think you might have said this, but yeah, we also find out that Pell not only speaks Jawiz, but she dated one, and apparently they're furry and have issues.
Oh God.
So yeah, like Agent 70 said, they kind of go through and spend half of the episodes. Like I said, this is a very paced episode. Fixing up this starfighter.
It's actually hold that thought. It's actually on the longer side. There's a lot. They fit in a lot of Mando stuff in this episode.
Right.
Go ahead.
So yeah. So they fix it up and they get it. I feel like it still wasn't ready even when they finished it, because I was like, they seemed like there was some stuff they could have patched up or kind of put some stuff on. But regardless, Mando took it on the spin. Took it off for a spin rather, and took it through Beggar's Canyon, which you know what that is from Luke's
and I was gonna say and
Anakin, but yeah, sure. Runs through there, then takes it out in space. Well, we'll get to that part in a minute, because this is the part I found funny, and I know you probably picked up on it. But so takes out on the spin, ends up going to space, ends up meeting with two Galactic Police officers in X-wings of familiar note, because one of them was Appa from Kim's Convenience. We've seen him a couple of times in The Mandalorian, so it's not surprising that he shows up. They even brought up the last couple of times that he's come across the Mandalorian, but he didn't know. But apparently, some reason they couldn't look through the window and see that it was him. But then again, I don't know if they actually ever saw him. I feel like they had, because I know they pulled him out from that with them. But regardless, it doesn't matter. They wanted to ask him a couple of questions, but before, and they asked him the requisite stuff like, "Hey, your transponder this, and because of this ship is off the record, it's not sending certain stuff." So they were kind of asking about this. Basically, they wanted to see license and registration. In other words,
the Star Wars equivalent of
exactly.
that is
Exactly. And then let's see. They don't even say his name. But anyway, the Republic officers kind of wanted to ask him some questions about that other stuff, and then basically hits the NOS button and gets the hell out of there. Which I kind of find it funny that Starfighter has NOS on it. Has the Star Wars equivalent of NOS on it. So Mando goes back to Peli's shop, where she tells him, like, yeah, somebody came looking for you, and we come to find out that it's Fennec Shan who's looking for him because of reasons we know why, and because Boba needs some muscle, and we come to find out that that's pretty much he basically says that yeah, he'll do it. Matter of fact, he was going to do it for free, but first he had to go see a friend, which he's been saying the whole episode. So which means he's going to see Grogu. Now here's the question about that, because that starts to put into question as to where this episode is in relation to one, Mandalorian season 3, and two, the last two episodes of this particular show. Because I'm wondering if it's going to be like what happened with Boba Fett in the Mandalorian, where they just kind of recount that,
Mm-hmm.
when that happens in season 3, or he's going to come in at the last minute, like in the last couple of the last episode, and come in with an assist or something.
Well, that remains to be seen.
Yeah, like we don't know.
What I would say is, we always joke about these interconnected shows, becoming required material. Especially when we're talking about the MCU, and now we've got this kind of corner of the Mandalorian, the Mandalorian corner of the Star Wars universe, and how the Book of Boba Fett really is a kind of required watching for fans of the Mandalorian show, because we literally have a backdoor pilot for the next season of the Mandalorian in this episode, and it seems that the Mandalorian is going to be playing a somewhat larger role than I expected in the last two episodes of the Book of Boba Fett.
Right.
Or within the last two episodes, maybe not in both, but definitely within the next and last two. It's interesting that we got so much development of the Mando storyline after it left off at the end of the second season of The Mandalorian, just in this one episode.
Right. I've seen some people saying like this is basically the best episode of this show, that in this particular episode had no Boba Fett in it at all.
Yeah, I've heard similar discussions about that.
So I was like, I'm not sure if that's a fair. I mean, it was definitely good. I thought it was a good episode, but and it was kind of doing the same thing, a similar thing to what happened, like I said, in season 2 of Boba Fett. I mean, season 2 of Mandalorian. Like I said, it was just kind of reversing that. It was like, as opposed at this point, it's the Mandalorian as opposed to Boba Fett, but it's a similar thing has kind of happened. So,
right. I think what's tough is the Mandalorian is kind of has a lot of elements that are typical of Star Wars adventures, whereas Boba Fett, at least until this point, never, hardly ever talks about stuff that's off world, off of Tatooine.
Right.
There's very little to no starship travel. So
True.
At this point, we've gotten, lots of shots of the Dune Sea and Mos Espa, and the inside of bars that are similar to other bars that we've seen in previous Star Wars movies and whatnot. So I think the breadth of this episode, the wide breadth of this episode, spanning space travel, spanning Jedi stuff, spanning Mandalorian culture, all that stuff, especially with it rotating around a character we've already seen 2 seasons of television on, I think I think that's sort of what people kind of expect from like this new brand of Star Wars, and what they're getting right now from Boba Fett isn't. So from what I've heard and what I've read, at least according to Ming-Na Wen, the last episode is really going to turn a lot of heads, the Book of Boba Fett. So I don't know if they're just trying to set up a second season, or if they really are just going to blow everyone's minds in that last episode, and it's just been kind of a slog and a bunch of exposition to get to that point. Right. So we'll see how this plays out.
Right. So, couple of things to note in that. Also, when I'm reading the rest of the article, to kind of remind me of something. So that whole quest of Mandos to go to the living waters beneath the mines of Mandalore kind of reminds me of Purple Rain being purified in the waters of Lake Minnetonka. It kind of reminded me of that when I heard it. Well, when he got the Starfighter, that kind of was kind of one. Kind of made me thinking that I very much thought this was going to happen, but he really wanted to raise a crest, and I think for obvious reasons. But he has a Starfighter now, so I'm kind of wondering if at some point he's going to get like Boba's fire spray. Now, granted, that's a stretch because obviously Boba's going to need his own ship, but like depending on how this plays out, we don't know what's going to happen. So I'm wondering if at some point we'll be like, you know what, you helped me out. Here, take my ship. You can have this fire spray. Because clearly we're probably not going to get another Razor Crest, which is, and apparently Razor Crest is a type of ship and not the name of the ship. So, according to this article. So, go figure. But outside of that, yeah, like I said, I enjoyed the episode. I'm looking forward to seeing what's coming up in the next couple of episodes of this. Like, are they?
Yeah, we're almost done. We're almost done with the Book of Boba Fett.
Mm-hmm. Like I said earlier, suspectfully, this is pretty much like Age of 7 said, is a backdoor to season 3 of Mandalorian, and that's definitely how this is playing out. So, and it would make sense, and they'll probably hook up like Boba Fett did with the Mandalorian season 2 in some sort of way, in shape and form, and and maybe there'll be a time jump to where, hey, Din's back, from what he was doing and helping out. But we'll see. Anyway. We can move on.
I was about to say we could just touch briefly on this week's episode of Peacemaker.
Sure.
Just that.
Also episode 5, correct?
What's that?
I believe it's also episode 5, correct?
Oh, you got me on this one.
Yeah, I can't even remember. I think it is, but I'm not sure.
You got me on this one. Now you're gonna make me pull up HBO Max and find out, because I don't remember. I want to say it's still 4.
That might be. Yeah, it's either 4 or 5. One of those two.
But in any event, while that's loading up so that we can see what episode we're actually up to, I can tell you that it is again very evident that it is a James Gunn production, all the way down to the writing, and obviously all the way down to the musical references and influences. So what I can say is we're definitely seeing more of the characters who are kind of meant to lead this show. Obviously Peacemaker being the title character, as well as Adebayo, who is related to, and obviously I'm not trying to spoil too much of this show, but who is in fact related to a long-standing DC character who plays a central role in the Suicide Squad stories. Right. So it is actually, you're right. It's actually episode 5.
So yeah, so I thought that part was kind of weird, going on that really quick, because so I'm gonna go ahead and spoil it. She's Amanda Watter's daughter. I didn't think they actually needed to do that, because the people they set up in Suicide Squad were already at the setup. Now, granted, apparently, but it also makes sense because Amanda Waller, being who she is, kind of want to keep tabs on this other group. So she needed a way to do that, and I guess she didn't want to do it with one of the other people. But also makes sense because those people kind of rose up against her at the end of the Suicide Squad. So
right. So yeah, they rebelled against her. So that's that's what that's what we've seen.
Right, which is kind of funny because in episode 1 they kind of recap that, but the only person that really got in trouble was the person that balked on the head.
Mm-hmm.
So I was like, I wonder if they're gonna bring that back up, but I doubt it. Regardless, this episode, they're going on another mission. I barely remember too much about it, but so we're not necessarily going.
Well, they're still right. Essentially, what it is that they're still investigating this butterfly thing, and they're following a lead. And the episode ends with there's a basically, as Roddykat referenced earlier, a side quest when it comes to, or at least a side story when it comes to who has been retconned as the Peacemaker's dad. Played by the Liquid Terminator, and the episode ends with a cliffhanger. Yeah. But I would say that my only kind of silly comment with regards to this is every time someone says Mern, right? Because I'm trying to figure out if this Myrn character comes from the comics or if it's a creation solely for this television show.
I want to say it's a creation for the show, but yeah, I don't know. I've
Right.
yet to look for that myself.
Right. So every time they say Myrn, I hear Vern, like, those Ernest commercials.
Yeah.
So, from, like, we're obviously dating ourselves here by remembering these Ernest commercials. Hey, Vern.
Mm-hmm.
Every time I hear Myrn.
DS9.
What's that?
I said, or Morn from DS9, which I know that's still slightly low.
Yeah, I was about to say, it doesn't sound the same.
Yeah.
It doesn't sound the same because every time I hear Myrn, I'm like, hey, Vern.
Mm-hmm.
So, but, in any event, it is definitely a James Gunn production. It is, at least the comedic parts are definitely written with a very snappy patter.
Mm-hmm.
This is not anything you would ever expect to see in a DC movie up until Gunn stepped in with the Suicide Squad.
Right. So yeah, So yeah, like I said, like Agent 70 said earlier, I don't think can't remember if he said it while we were streaming, but it was a fun episode. For the most part, Then, I don't know. I'm still not convinced that this needed to be a show or anything, but like I said, it's still fun enough to watch for reasons like I don't really care for Xena or Peacemaker at that point, but like I said, it's been
none of us do. It's not like it's a character that any of like there's the vast majority of the characters that are being explored in this are not characters that we have any sort of loyalty or attachment to.
Right.
So it's just sort of standing on its own as a James Gunn work. That's what it's doing for me. And he's basically had free reign, and he said as much in interviews leading up to the show. He's had free reign, so it's interesting to see where he's taking some of these characters. The only character I had any sort of a connection with or reference to before this was Vigilante, and this is a very different version of Adrian Chase than I ever read.
Right.
So at the end of the day, I was going to say at the end of the day, when this series ends, we'll have we'll take it as a James Gunn piece, as opposed to, at least in my mind, as opposed to like a seeing how it plays along with the rest of the DC extended universe and whether or not it quote unquote needed to be done. That's for the rest of the pundits. I would just say that it's it's definitely an auteur driven piece.
Yeah, and he's definitely having fun with it. He was even putting in digs to his earlier his. I would say that's a dig to his earlier works with Guardians of the Galaxy, because especially given that that conversation from last episode about the duck in human clothes.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like if that wasn't a Howard the Duck dig, I don't know what is.
Or definitely a reference. Yeah. Maybe not a dig, but definitely like a tongue-in-cheek reference.
Mm-hmm.
Because let's face it, they would not have put Howard the Duck in that movie if James Gunn didn't want him there.
Right. So, at any rate, that's that. Like I said, watch it if you want to. When if it is what it is. I also watched the most recent episode of Naomi. That show still is what it is. I'm not sure where it's going. And I still haven't read the books that it's read out that it's made off of. Noticeably, there are no Easter egg videos for that show as opposed to the other shows that we've talked about. So that's interesting, but I guess it is what it is. For
maybe there aren't that many.
I mean, from what I could see, probably not. I mean, because the only couple of that I've seen was like, okay, yeah, that's a Thanagarian and a couple other things. But obviously, not knowing that much about her character, I would not know if there would be any other, any other significant Easter eggs in the show either. So who knows? But like I said, that show is what it is. It's I guess a well produced show. Or for as much as a CW show would be anyway, but it is definitely a CW show, so take that for what it is. Anyway, we're going to get into books. And we said we're going to start with The Death of Doctor Strange number 5.
All right. Death of Doctor Strange number 5 of 5. So this is the last issue of this miniseries. This book is written by Jed McKay with art by Lee Garbett, colors by Antonio Fabella. I think this is a typo.
Fabella? No, that's I think that's right. Yeah.
Is it Fabla or Fabella?
Oh wait, it's Fabella. I did. Yeah, you're right. That is just like.
Mm-hmm.
There we go. Pink.
It's all right. Just gonna fix it in my sheet. All right, and letters by VC's Corey Pettit. So this is the climax of this Death of Doctor Strange story, where we find the efforts of the remaining magicians of the on Earth, that is, moving against the mothers and this child, the three mothers and this child, and the culprit has been revealed as the last issue laid out, and now we have and without spoiling too much, we have something of a fail-safe plan that Doctor Strange put into effect many moons ago when he went by the Master of Dark Magic, coming into effect, and that fail-safe plan working some wonders and doing some, let's say, unexpected things, and eventually the menace is dealt with some aid from the Avengers and the X-Men, but ultimately it's the magicians who do the lion's share, because this is in fact a magic fight. And when we get down to it, the players left standing on the field are the magic users, and especially one character who's been brought back into the fold of Doctor Strange during the course of this miniseries, and is being set up to have a larger role in the Marvel universe going forward. So that's where this miniseries ends. There is an interesting twist in this issue. Yeah. The twist being that something we didn't think would happen actually happens, but it is short-lived, and that was at least somewhat surprising to me, even though I knew that how it ultimately ended was where the story was going, thanks in part to what I knew where it was going, thanks in part to solicitations for future comics.
Right. So I'm going to say, one, we now have a new Sorcerer Supreme. Just go ahead and get that out there. I'm not saying who it is, just not to spoil that point. But yes, and this new Sorcerer Supreme kind of has a mission of their own, or at least a side mission of their own, that I guess they're going to be exploring during their run. But also this twist that 87 is talking about, I go back and forth as to wonder whether that was needed or not, because I feel like they could have done the same thing they ended up doing without putting that twist in there. Because it kind of made you go one way for a second, and I was like, oh wait. But I feel like if they,
I think that's the point. I think that was the point.
But what I'm trying to say is, like, one, it wasn't necessary to go through that point, like I just said, but also like to do that. And I get that if they had gone through that to a kind of sort of logical conclusion, people would have groaned at it. Like if it had not gone the way it went, and they did something that you would think would have been expected in that situation, like, yeah, that'd have been like, then what was the point of this whole thing? Just to come back to this,
Mm-hmm.
So I get that, but at the same time, like, well, they didn't necessarily have to do that twist to do that, like I said. So I don't know. I kind of bumped on that for a second, but it was cool. It was cool to see, but it was like, but also cool to see how they handled that. But it still seems like kind of unnecessary. I don't know.
Right, and we were talking earlier about whether or not this is ill-timed or well-timed with the release of the Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness movie that's set to come out in May. Whether or not the story wraps by May obviously is up to the scheduling gods and the editors over and the creators over at Marvel. But whether or not we see this particular status quo revert back to normal or continue, we've kind of come to see that this doesn't necessarily mean that this will revert back by the time the movie opens. I made a reference to what happens in what's actually currently happening and has been happening in the pages of Amazing Spider-Man, in connection with or in relation to what is currently going or what went on movie screens with Spider-Man No Way Home.
Mm-hmm.
So, it doesn't necessarily mean that this particular story development will be reversed or updated by the time the movie comes out. We've been led to believe that, we've been conditioned to believe that, but that may not be the case. That's just something that we were talking about before the show started.
Right. I suspect probably shortly after the movie, it will probably revert. Maybe not before, but probably shortly after. Regardless of how scheduling goes, probably like shortly after. It's like, okay, now we could go back to this now that the movie's out, and they can ride on that for however long they plan to do that. And maybe the movie, the movie is not obviously not going to have anything to do with the comics, but or at least not directly. But I'm sure at some point down the line, it probably will.
Right. It's just the reason why, it kind of struck me as being, or at least the situation with Spider-Man being kind of odd. The title is still there. So if someone walked into the comic book store and said, I'm looking for Spider-Man comics, they can actually point it out, but they would look at it and say, well, why is the costume so different, and who the hell is Ben Reilly?
Right. Or they'd be like, well, here's two of them. Which one you want? But, obviously they'll more than likely comic shops will be like, well, clearly you want this one, not
right.
this other one. So, but yeah, you're right. You're right.
Even though, and we'll get to what's been happening in Amazing, but no big spoiler, Peter's still around. He's just not the one wearing the webs at this point.
As a matter of fact, let's just go ahead and get into it.
All righty. So moving on to Amazing Spider-Man number 87. This book is written by Zeb Wells with art by Carlos Gomez. Colors are by Brian Valenza, and letters by our favorite lettering paisan, VC's Joe Caramagna. So this issue I thought was interesting from jump, because I did not expect this particular, and it's been teased in solicitations.
Yeah.
Right? It was teased in solicitations. The cover gives it away right away, so it's kind of hard to spoil it. But if you look at the cover to Amazing Spider-Man number 87, it is depicting none other than Captain America, Steve Rogers, and Felicia Hardy, the Black Cat. And in this issue, they are laid out as being instrumental in the rehabilitation of, the physical rehabilitation, even the mental rehabilitation of Peter Parker, in order to get him back into the webs.
Yeah.
And I found this part, the very beginning part, kind of jarring, because it's funny because the Black Cat, much like Catwoman, definitely rides that rides that fine line between being kind of heroic and just being a thief, not necessarily being a villain.
Sure. She's about her own thing. Yeah.
I'm sorry?
I said she's about her own thing.
Right. But ultimately, seeing this particular kind of casual setting, and it's the crowd scene, or the crowd in this particular pub, are basically avatars for the reader. Like, that's us. We're watching this. Like, what the hell is going on here?
But boy, she put away some wings. Apparently. So yeah, so we start off with Steve Rogers and Felicia in a pub, like Agent 70 said, and they're basically talking about Peter, and then before getting into them rehabilitating him, and then basically the issue is just a whole big training session, or a series of training sessions, or at least half of it is. Anyway, we do get a little bit with Ben,
Hmm.
with them and Peter. And I guess we can go ahead and point it out that we get a couple of different versions of a familiar Spidey suit in the midst of this from a particular particular version, aka the bombastic bag man.
Mm.
Um, because apparently they're not gonna let him have the suit, and as you can see on the cover, they even said it was like, yeah, you got to earn it. So, and that's kind of what they're going to do is like, yeah, so they're sitting here trying to get him back into shape, and we see some internal monologue from a couple different people and this and the other on that side of it. So I enjoyed this issue for that stuff. The Ben Riley stuff, where we find out, I guess we find out the extent of his or part of his memories when after they suppressed them last at the end of last issue. We find out bits about that.
Right. I think that's a development. I think that is a story development for the Ben Riley character, moving beyond, no pun intended, this
Haha,
beyond storyline.
very good. Correct.
That is a seed I think that has been planted with regards to where this character is going to go.
Right. Did you read that
So,
Ben Riley book from last week?
no, I didn't.
You still didn't? Okay, yeah. Because
I didn't.
I'm still slightly curious about whether they're going to even touch on that in that, or they're just going to a whole other thing. But at this point, I may or may not check it out. But
Right.
but at the end of this, we see we basically see the a little bit after the next book we're talking about, in that Mary Jane comes home and is met by Ben's girlfriend Janine, and who basically says like, "We got to talk." And I think she has the disc that she got.
Yeah, the hard drive. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So, but Mary Jane's dressed in a particular way, which we will get into in a second. Unless you got something else you guys to say about
Yeah,
that.
just a couple of notes on this issue, especially with regards to Black Cat and Captain America playing this role, or these particular roles for Peter Parker. So it's funny because there is an issue of Black Cat
Mm-hmm.
during the King in Black crossover, where they kind of have Black Cat and Captain America interact.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that is part of the basis of this kind of growing, relationship. It's not a romantic relationship. It's just sort of like a interaction, a level of interaction that we've never previously seen between these two characters, right? So this is, something that I don't know if that was a McKay written issue or not. This might be something that McKay has kind of brought into the Marvel universe.
Sure.
But in any event, bringing Cap in is one thing, but then I'm remembering that Shang-Chi is not necessarily welcome in the halls of actually, there is no Avengers Mansion at this point, but
Right.
Avengers Mountain.
Right.
Given the events of given the current events of his series, it does make some sense that Captain America would be the person that is putting Spider-Man through at least the combat paces that we see in this book. But part of me was thinking, well, it's a shame that Peter's not pulling out the spider foo. I think that's what it was called.
Right. So I'm thinking they probably still could have done that, but it also makes sense because it's not like it's not definitely not the first time Cap has trained some folks.
Mm-hmm.
So that, and he has definitely been around and probably more closer, especially, well, not that this has anything to do with Devil's Reign, but we know he's around in Devil's Reign, so we know he was in the area, despite what's going on in Avengers. But yeah, I thought about it. So now Shang-Chi could have still done it, because it's not like Spidey wasn't. Spidey, I feel like Spidey was still kind of on the, still kind of wanting to see the good in Shang-Chi. So some kind of way that could have, either Peter could have gone on that, or maybe, I don't know, Black Cat could have gone to him for some way. But like I said, it does definitely make way more sense that at this point, the way this is done, Cap is the one.
Exactly. That Cap is the one doing it.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So as Roddykat mentioned, we do get a tease in an epilogue at the end of this issue of an adventure that Mary Jane has been on, and that is actually laid out in the pages of this week's Mary Jane and Black Cat Beyond #1. This book is written by Jed MacKay with art by C.F. Villa, colors by Eric Arciniega, and letters by VC's Travis Lanham. Take it away, Roddykat.
So I'm gonna say this is a potential click. This and actually, surprisingly enough, amazing. Both are potential clicks of the week for me this week. For slightly different reasons, but this is apparently a banner Black Cat week, in the fact that she's been in both of these books. So yeah, the crux of this is that, as a matter of fact, I'm going to go straight to my notes because they don't spoil anything. Basically, Mary Jane and Felicia team up and wrap up a loose end from that last Hawkeye miniseries.
Right, I thought of you because I think you were reading that Free Fall. I actually picked up those back issues from a yard sale
and I
over the
was
summer.
Jed MacKay. Yeah, and I believe Jed MacKay wrote that.
Right, so I actually picked up those back issues, but I remember you were reading it while those were coming out. So I'm glad that they chose to follow up on that. Or they gave MacKay some time to follow up on that.
Right. And like I said in my notes, it's definitely a loose end that got there. Because part of that I don't even remember. Like I remember the crux of it, and I remember the hood. Well, spoiler: the hood's involved with this. Being a part of that miniseries and coming back into this, who's basically asking Felicia to do him a solid. Not even doing him solid, but basically kind of trying to hold him hostage. Hold someone she and Mary Jane holds dear hostage. You already know who that is. While they do something for him. So, but Felicia pulling in Mary Jane to do this was interesting. Or Mary Jane getting pulled in this because actually she didn't. She basically was trying to help out, trying to get Mary Jane away from the situation. But Mary Jane ends up being quote unquote part of the crew, an effective part of the crew at that. So. I would dare say that what they get into they get into was pretty good, and I wouldn't mind seeing a series with them two together. Because even at the end of this, like they had a little bonding session at the end of this because especially the conversation they had at the end, like Felicia's kind of feeling some way about her place in Peter's life, and Mary Jane kind of relating to that because of how she came into his life.
Yeah, I thought that was a nice twist, and I'll be honest. When I said before the show that I had a click of the week already planned out. This is it, because I just appreciated the extra touches that Jed MacKay put on this, and C.F. Villa's art. We've gotten accustomed to seeing his art on Black Cat, and it is definitely it definitely accentuates Black Cat, and in this issue also accentuates Mary Jane Watson.
Or maybe
I'm sorry.
I was about to say no pun intended, or maybe it was.
Oh, definitely intended. But ultimately, I definitely appreciated the latter half of this book with just the quiet time that they had a chance to have at the end of the issue, which kind of brought the characters together because they do share things in common, and more than we even thought. Exactly. Especially the way it was laid out, because when I read it, I was like, oh, you know what? I can't believe this is exactly how this plays out. Has played out in the history of Spider-Man.
Right.
So I definitely appreciated that. And it's interesting that they brought these two particular characters together.
Who have been at odds with each other at time.
Right, but I was going to say who obviously have not always had good feelings toward each other.
Right.
So, in the past, but at this point, they've reached some sort of détente and understanding.
Also, it was kind of funny. There was a particular part in this where they go back to a certain place, and somebody was like, "Oh, this dream again."
That was just great.
I love that part. I was like, yeah, that makes sense. That makes total sense that he would have had that dream.
That was great.
I was like, "Yep, that all checks out." Oh, by the way, I was wrong about who wrote Hawkeye Freefall. It was Matthew Rosenberg, not Jed McKay.
Gotcha.
But we like this stuff, and it kind of makes sense. Their sensibilities kind of, it makes a lot of sense. But regardless, it was still a loose end from that. So, but yeah, this is again a potential click of the week. I may actually go ahead and make it. It's probably going to end up being mine also.
It was just an interesting read. Like, I actually did not pull this book, despite the fact that the J. Scott Campbell cover is pretty killer.
Mm-hmm. If you're watching the video version, you can see that.
Yes, I still have not grown up, but ultimately, there's just a lot of fun bits in this issue that are just, that we cannot ignore.
Yeah,
cannot
absolutely.
Ignore how fun some of these bits are, and it is definitely a worthwhile pickup for anyone this week. And I could definitely understand part of the conversation that Mary Jane and Felicia have at the end of the issue, basically talking about how does Peter Parker get these stupendously hot chicks always in his life, other than the fact that that's what the writers are doing,
Yes. I was like, that the explanation that was actually, that makes absolute sense. I was like, because I'm pretty sure people have absolutely wondered that, I mean, there have probably been whole discussions about that, but then again, there's also some wish fulfillment, behind some of that also, because
of course.
So, at any rate, yes, there's great stuff. You should definitely check it out. Now, normally we would have been like, hey, this is I still stand behind the fact that this is a loose tie-in to the whole Beyond stuff, but it doesn't matter. This is one of the ones that's like, it doesn't matter because it was just a good read. Like, some of these tie-ins are barely needed, if not anything else. But this one probably would go along that same lines, but still great. That being said, though, we can move on to maybe one more book before we because I know we read a bit. Iron Man, I guess.
That's okay. All right. Iron Man number 16.
You know what? No. Just do Marauders.
All right, Marauders Annual number 1. This book is written by Steve Orlando with art by Chris Lee. Colors are by Rain Barreto and letters by VC's Corey Pettit. So I'll start this and Roddykat will pick it up. So we get a little bit of changing of the guard, as it were, in this issue, because we've come to the point in Marauders where it's kind of ending one volume of the book and starting up a second volume. This is basically the coda for the first volume of Marauders. And without going too deep into all the details, Kate Pride is looking for a new crew for a new Marauder. And a lot of this issue is laying out who they approach, or who she and Bishop approach about joining this new crew of Marauders, and what their initial quest is going to be about.
Yep, pretty much. I don't do the villain that, if you're watching the video version, you can see on the cover. Is this already established? Is this a new? I assume this is a new. I mean, this is gonna be an established person, but I don't recall ever seeing this character.
That's a good question. I've not had a chance to look that up. So a quick Google search of the villain's name will see if there are any previous appearances.
It can be safe to say that he gave Love a bad name.
Oh no!
You're welcome.
Brimstone Love. That's the character's name. Goodness gracious.
And now the other people are like, "What? I don't get it." And now the one or two people who are like, "What?" now get it. If you're a certain vendor, you will probably get it because if not, you probably still won't get it. So
Oh, this is a pre-existing character.
okay, they made it sound like it was, but like I said, I'd never heard of him before. So
This is from Marvel 2099.
really,
Yeah.
okay, that's weird. But then again, I guess that makes sense. Bishop's a time traveler, and we got Tempo, who can manipulate time in a way. Even though neither one of those had any kind of factor in the story to that extent. But
That is
weird.
wild.
Huh. Okay.
So this is a pre-existing character.
Right.
Oh my god.
Like I said, they kind of made it like it was, but I was like I'd never heard of them, so I was like, okay. And granted, X-Men, the X folks got a lot of villains, so it could have been something.
Yeah, Marvel 20. Yeah, Brimstone Love is I was not a 2099 person when that came out, but apparently, Brimstone Love is one of the lead villains in X-Men 2099 when that came out. Holy cow!
So how the hell did they get here? Unless it's an earlier incarnation, I guess, or something. I don't know.
He actually first appeared in X-Men 2099 number 3. Holy cow!
Interesting. Okay, well there you go. Yeah. So, but as we said, this is all to basically get the band back together, or get a new band back together, and actually get the new mission. Because at the end of this, we definitely get the first mystery, or at least one of the first mysteries that Kate and crew are going to be handling when the new volume of Marauders starts in March, I think.
Something like.
Yeah, but basically it's soon. So because we knew Marauders was coming back with a new volume.
Mm-hmm.
So there you go. There, ding, 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 ding. We just found out about a character we neither one of us knew about.
Which like literally to the Googles, and off we went, and all of a sudden it pops up that this character has been around for a long time. That's pretty wild.
Yeah, I might have to read up on that then, because I was like, you could have gone either way. If you had told me this was a brand new character, I would have believed it.
Mm-hmm.
So, at any rate, I guess we can go into, unless there's a book you're feeling really particular about, we can go into rapid fire.
I was just looking at one of the looking at the variant covers for Mary Jane and Black Cat Beyond. There's a funny Adam Hughes one.
Oh, okay.
So, and it kind of plays out exactly, like with the joke that seems obvious. All right, so I will spin up the old minigun.
I ain't got time to move.
All right, first up, and Roddykat will chime in when it's a book that he also has read. Avengers Forever number 2. Written by Jason Aaron with pencils by Aaron Cooter and Carlos Magno, inks by Scott Hanna, Roberto Poggi, and Cam Smith, and colors by Guru EFX. This issue follows up on the very first issue of this series with Robbie Reyes basically imprisoned by a character from the multiverse, the Masters of Evil of the Multiverse, I think they were. Forgive me if I'm misremembering now.
I believe it's the Masters of the Multiverse. I believe that's what it's called, but regardless.
Right. Well, I mean, but that's essentially what it is, though, right. Is that it's a Masters of Evil, but from across the multiverse. Right. This particular villain is a combination of the Red Skull and Venom. And that combination proves to be strong enough to hold down this version of the Ghost Rider in order to allow the Black Skull, as the character is named here, to perform some unfortunate experimentation on the Ghost Rider. In addition, we get a tease of a greater role of that Robbie Reyes may be playing in the Marvel universe, as well as playing on the fact that the Ghost Rider, this particular version of the Ghost Rider, up until now, is very different from the iterations of Ghost Rider that we've seen previously, and that it plays it up. This story plays up that particular difference and possibly gives us a retconned or expanded explanation for for Robbie Reyes' origin as a Ghost Rider. Anything to add?
No, that's pretty much that.
Alrighty, next up is Black Panther number 3. This is written by John Ridley with art by Juan Cabal and Ibrahim Mustafa. Colors are by Matt Miller and letters are by VC's Joe Sabino. This is actually the credits for the first story, the main story in this issue. This is a slightly larger than normal book because it is in fact the 200th issue of a Black Panther comic ever. So they celebrated not with renumbering, but with just an extra sized issue. And we obviously get the legacy numbering of 200, but it remains Black Panther number 3. In this issue, we continue with more finding out just tiny bits more about this sleeper cell program that T'Challa had put into effect, but T'Challa and one of his sleepers is forced to flee and go underground, as it were, and regroup during this issue. And where do they go to technically go underground? They literally go way above ground and make their way to Araco, where Black Panther thinks he's going to be able to find some respite and be able to shield himself from whomever it is basically trying to bait him into doing what they want back on Earth. There is a second story, a smaller story that may or may not have some ramifications in the main story of the Black Panther, but the third story is of note because it seems very much so, because it is written by John Ridley, that we will see a character introduced in this third story playing a further role in the politics of Wakanda, now that Wakanda has converted to a democratic form of government, much more British than American, because there is still, in name at least, royalty and a monarch as the head, or at least a figurative head of the government.
Right. Not only does this character come in for that reason, but also some would argue, well, probably was going to have an in the defense of Wakanda from within, possibly also without, because they seem to be setting this character up as another hero figure. That's probably gonna. I don't know if I would say street level for Wakanda, but probably we'll see how that works out.
We also get. Oh, sorry.
Go ahead. No, go ahead.
We also get an interesting revelation about a certain X character.
Yes.
In this issue.
Yes.
It's a minor spoiler when we're talking about the X-Men and the Black Panthers involved, but we do get a revelation about that character.
Right. And going back to what Agent 70 said about going to, I found out the fact that he ends up going to Araco, as I say in my notes, like, we know why he went to Araco. You wanted to see his booty, to get some respite, and he ends up, which I thought that last page was kind of I guess touching for like a better word, because it was like, okay, that I guess I should have expected part of that, but didn't know it, because what happened early in the issue was like seemed opposite of what what would have happened, because I thought the character did actually have some animosity towards Wakandans, as opposed to what we found out at the end of it. But also, like, so, yeah, he went to see Storm. We all know this. So, and of course, he did see her, and they talked for a little while, and he did get a little something out of it. And I guess this is, I can't remember if this is like, hey, this is them basically saying like, yeah, they're back together again, because they flat out said it was like, yeah, when we got back together, there wouldn't be any more secrets or anything. And I don't remember, and I've been reading the books, like, they've been seen together and they've been definitely together, but I don't think it has been outright said. It was like they are now back together. So T'Challa and Aurora are back together as a couple, not married, just as a couple. So.
Right. I think that that was a development in previous Black Panther issues,
right?
Like prior to John Ridley coming on.
Right. That's what I'm saying. But it wasn't necessarily. It might have been actually, because I remember that during that especially that last part of Ta-Nehisi's Ghost Run, they were definitely together and they talked a little bit, but like I said, it wasn't spelled out, I guess, to the point. Regardless, it is what it is. That was a development that I appreciated, but seeing it here also, if it wasn't clear,
it was more. It was definitely, laid out bare.
Right.
As opposed to maybe it being kind of, as many relationships are when they're first starting out, a little bit vague. But I could have sworn I remember seeing that in Coates's run towards the end.
Yeah, probably.
But in any event, moving on to the next book, Devil's Reign number 3 of 6. So we are halfway through this Devil's Reign limited series. It is written by Chip Zdarsky with art by Marco Cacchetto, colors by Marcio Meniz, and letters by Clayton Cowles. So I want to say it's probably VC's Clayton Cowles because it is a Marvel book after all. Bottom line with this miniseries, I'm trying not to spoil it too badly because Roddykat will likely jump into this miniseries just to see what's been going on. He was not much of a Daredevil reader, but and this was obviously meant to follow up on events from the pages of Daredevil, but now that we're starting to see some of this stuff trickle into the rest of the Marvel universe, at least the New York corner of the Marvel universe, I think Roddykat is going to, flip through at least the main miniseries. Ultimately, in this issue, we have a lot of the gears of the series moving forward. We have Luke Cage playing a role. We have the return of the progeny of a certain villain who played a role in why the Kingpin is kind of lost all sense of perspective and decided to go on this particular rampage. We find ourselves flashing back to the Superhuman Registration Act. There are some references in this, so we're sort of getting a little bit of a flashback to the Civil War days. But when you think about it, Civil War in the comics was so long ago now. Mm-hmm. There's an entire generation of readers who came up after Civil War was published. So doing this whole Superhuman Registration Act style thing again, even though we've already seen Civil War II, we've already seen, and they even reference in this issue Kamala's Act, mm-hmm. And being a thing recently.
Right, and funny enough, not the first time this week that comes up, the Superhero Registration Act, but I get to that in a minute or two.
So we're definitely seeing the chips move into place, but I think the action's going to start picking up even more in the next issue because that will put us in the back half of this miniseries.
I see what you did there with the chip. I see what you did there. Real good.
Next up is Iron Man number 16, which we held off on talking about. It's written by Christopher Cantwell with art by Julius Ota, colors by Frank Darmada, and letters by our favorite paisan, VC's Joe Caramagna. So, if you thought that giving Tony Stark the power cosmic was a good idea, this issue is all about why that's probably not a good idea. Mm-hmm. Bottom line is nobody is really that happy that this has happened to Tony Stark. And Tony Stark, of course, if you're familiar with how... Say again?
At least nobody that knows about it.
Right. If you're familiar with the way Tony Stark has been portrayed through much of his fictional career, you can sort of guess where this was going. The way it was implemented and what he actually does with this power was a little bit of a twist. I did not expect this twist, but it was an interesting twist to boot. I kind of appreciated its effect on one Reed Richards, and
yeah,
and ultimately, where one of the heroes goes for help is to a person outside of this particular sphere of effect, this effect radius. And
I thought he did the whole world though. I thought the effect was of the whole world.
Nope. He starts with New York because he uses that as a sample. If you go back to the issue, it actually says, "I'm just going to do it in the New York area."
Oh, okay.
Which is why it affects one character specifically, right? Making that character dumber, but doesn't reach this character who is sought out for aid.
Actually, if you think about it, a couple, because I thought about this after I read this, I'm like, boy, Moon Girl's probably gonna be mad.
Yeah.
Even though she doesn't come up in this book, but obviously there were a couple of people that were,
there's a couple of people on that list.
Exactly, a couple of people on the list that are smarter than Tony Stark, who are now, thanks to this, have been reduced.
Exactly. So it's an interesting twist to what we thought was going to be kind of the fallout from Tony Stark gaining the power cosmic.
But also a very Tony Stark solution, especially with his incessant need to fix things. Like, yeah, I did expect there would be more of a physical solution or like kind of what's been what was mentioned in the MCU.
A suit of armor around the world.
Exactly.
That's what I thought he was going to do.
Yeah, I expected more of that kind of situation to happen, but it didn't. So yeah, the way, like you said, the way he did it was like, yeah, that was an interesting way to go about it, but also a very Tony Stark thing to do in a way.
And it was just it was so interesting, and I didn't even think of Lunella because that particular development is still relatively new. But the obvious one was presented to us, and we're just like, oh, that's pretty funny.
Yeah, that was pretty good.
So next up is Thor number 21. It's written by Donny Cates with art by Nick Klein, colors by Matt Wilson, and letters by VC's Joe Sabino. So we have a continuation of the story with what's been happening to Mjolnir and why it's been disobedient and not following Thor. And we have kind of an interesting twist on what Mjolnir actually was all along, and we're getting some retcons from Donny Cates in this regard. And we also harken back to some of the things that happened during Jane Foster's time as Thor and how that plays into what we see in this issue. So it is Donny Cates weaving what we last saw in Jason Aaron's run into this, into the current status quo of Thor. So it's interesting. I'm not exactly enthralled by it, but it's still an interesting take on what, on some of the ramifications of what we've seen in the past and some of these concepts that are now being introduced to the world of Thor, including that Mjolnir is an ore that is partially moon rock, which is something we found out in the pages of Moon Knight. So that actually is, it's just a passing reference in this book, but it's still acknowledged.
Wait, I thought that was in Avengers.
No, I apologize. It wasn't Avengers, but it was the Moon Knight story.
Right. Yeah, the Age of Khonshu thing. Yeah.
Yeah. So next up is 10 Deaths of Wolverine number 1. It's written by Benjamin Percy with art by Federico Vicentini. Colors are by Dio Lima and Frank Martin, and letters are by VC's Corey Pettit. So I am not going to spoil this because it was the issue explores a surprising direction. And that direction is the immediate aftermath of Inferno, the recent miniseries that just wrapped up that centered around Moira McTaggart, Mystique, and Destiny. So it literally picks up almost where we left off in Inferno with the at least two of those characters, and I did not expect that at all, because the character that's in the title of this book hardly makes an appearance, much like Boba Fett in this week's Book of Boba Fett. So actually, in this issue, Wolverine actually does make more of an appearance than Boba Fett in this week's episode of Book of Boba Fett. But as I said, I'm not looking to spoil it because I think Roddykat may at least flip through this, but ultimately that is where we find ourselves in this issue. They do acknowledge some of the time traveling adventures that Wolverine is on, which he seems to be going on partially mentally, partially, physically. So, at least through the magic of Krakoan science and telepathy. So, Roddykat may end up having to take a look at the 10 lives of Wolverine as well. Last but not least is X-Men number 7. It's written by Jerry Duggan with art by Pepe Larraz, colors by Marte Gracia, and letters by VC's Clayton Cowell. So the catalyst for several things that have happened over the last several issues of X-Men with regards to Cyclops is finally revealed in this issue as a flashback. So any confusion that may have emerged during the last several issues of reading X-Men, when it comes to trying to figure out what Jerry Duggan is talking about, what the story is talking about with regards to Cyclops, is at least partially cleared up in this issue. But the mystery still remains as to what the ultimate conclusion will be for this story, because it does involve Orcus. It also involves some idea of what the Krakoans are doing in New York. So ultimately, I don't know if you have anything to add to this.
Well, just the fact that I thought I'm glad you said what you said, because going into this issue, I honestly thought I had missed something, even though I had been.
I think I did too.
Yeah, because I was like, wait, so this character shows up last issue, and I don't remember when the stuff they're talking about happened, but then it kind of clicked. I was like, all right, this was a flashback.
Mm-hmm.
So that's
right,
about it.
and a lot of it is happening under the orchestration, due to the orchestration by this character who is at least a part of Orcus, and Orcus has very many branches to it. So,
right.
We learned from previous data pages as the Hickman X universe has become prone to providing, that Orcus has drawn help from all sorts of governmental organizations and non-governmental organizations from across the hero and villain and neutral spectrum. So, you want, former Shield, it's there. Hydra, it's there. AIM, it's there. Alpha Flight, it's there.
Mm-hmm.
So it's they're all running, they're all part of Orcus at this point. And it's interesting to see where this character that is kind of running, orchestrating this behind the scenes, what their ultimate goal is. I mean, other than the destruction of the mutants.
Right. Also, I guess now that makes me think of something. Going back to Marauders Annual, the villain that shows up there was said to be backed by some folks, but we don't necessarily get a sense of who, except for a data page. But even then, doesn't necessarily say who. Could potentially also be Orcus, or it could be crowdfunding. We don't know. But I mean, but that is a thing that's kind of come up there as well as here.
And that's it for me.
Yeah, the only other thing I have to add to that, the X-Men thing is like, yeah, we do get a little side thing with apparently uh find out something about Sync's power, I guess, which they made a point to bring that up. So I feel like that's probably going to be something else that they're going to explore during whatever's going on now. Partially due to Resurrection, and I guess maybe maybe they're going to make that into something, because I know they brought up Sync before because of something early on in this volume. So I'm pretty sure they didn't bring it up for no reason. But I guess we'll see why, how, or whatever. So let's see. Let's get to my books, which I only have a couple left. Captain America Iron Man number 3. So just like I said just a second ago. Actually come back to that. Creative team is writer Derek Landy, art by Angel Unzueta, color artist Rochelle Rosenberg, letters by VC's Joe Caramagna. But like I was just saying, when Agent 70 was talking about Devil's Reign, not the first time this week that Superhero Registration Act comes up. Because as we come to find out, and I don't know if you plan on reading this, by the way, Agent 70. Yay? No?
Not sure. I think I read the first issue,
right?
But I didn't read the second one, so I may not. We'll see.
Gotcha. So basically,
go ahead. I mean, you can talk freely about it.
Well, the only thing I was really going to say is that it happens to come up for a reason as well as one of the let's put it this way. One of the reasons why a character is doing what the character is doing, but in the words of Firefly, curse your sudden but inevitable betrayal, because the person or the entity that they were working with betrays them, and now this person finds themselves in a position that they thought they had control over, but they didn't, but they don't. So and on the other side of that, we get this team of would-be heroes, kind of feeling sorry for themselves because of because of their showing in the last couple of issues. So whether something is going to happen to them in the next couple of issues, we'll find out, I guess. Who knows? Let's see. Static Season 1, number 5 is my next book. As I pull up, bing, there we go. Creative team is writer Vita Ayala, art by Nicholas Draper Ivy, and letters by And World Design. So Static and his friends end up infiltrating this center that's basically kidnapping bang babies and experimenting on them, or test, basically experimenting on them to test on them and all that kind of good mess. But Static and crew goes into breaking them off. But first we get treated to a rematch with Hotshot from the last couple of issues. A longtime rival, Static rival, as some might know. Before kind of that's getting called off, and like I said, they end up freeing these other kids that have been taken, and at the end of this get to a point which I will not spoil, that may not necessarily have anything to do with the cover if you're watching the video cover, because actually that cover looks like he's in a cosmic cube, but not. No. Aquaman, Green Arrow, Deep Target, number 4. Excuse me. Thought I misnumbered that. But this is a weird one. It's written by Brandon Thomas, art by Ronan Cliche. I guess that's pronounced. I apologize if I messed your name up. Colors by Ulysses Areola, and letters by Josh Reed. So basically, Aquaman and Green Arrow had a Freaky Friday thing going on, thanks to the villain. As of last episode, as last issue, they tried to escape this facility, but they kind of can't because it's in space. But they end up doing that, but only to find themselves on the Planet of the Apes. Not literally, but pretty much similarly, because they get back to Earth and come to find out that is where they end up is not the same way it was when they left it. And not only that, but when they get to Earth, they find out that a character that they've been going up against somehow, some way had a change that was not like they've been going through in the last couple of issues. And in the midst of that, they've also been dealing with internal stuff within themselves, because obviously because of their Freaky Friday situation, they have switched bodies and memories, and their memories have been blended, and they're kind of forgetting, or seemingly forgetting, parts of their old life in their original bodies, and so they're kind of coming to terms, or they're basically still set to try to reverse that, but things are still kind of going on. And one of them's kind of feeling a little bit more effects of it than the other, as one might expect in that team up, because they don't have the thing that they used to, the strengths that they used to have. So, like I said, this is a weird one, but still good. Let's see, Wonder Girl. Oh, I forgot a book. Wonder Girl number 7. I believe this is the last issue of this book. As I pull up the
it is.
Yeah.
It is, even though they did solicit number 8.
Okay. Yeah, because I'll just go ahead and say that at the end of this book, it's going to be continued in the Amazon event, Trial of the Amazons, which I probably have briefly mentioned in relation to Nubia and the Amazons, and I'm pretty sure Wonder Woman was involved with that, obviously, but I haven't been reading Wonder Woman, so I don't know what's going on in that book. The creative team is writer Joel Jones, art by Leila Del Duca, colors by Jody Belair, and letters by Pat Brousseau. So, there are a faction of Amazonians, the Brazilian ones to be specific, are fighting their way into Mount Olympus, while Yara's trying to fight her way out. There is a weird Xena warrior princess. Not even weird. I feel like there's a reference to Xena warrior princess happening in a couple of panels. One specific reference, to be exact. But there is that. So, the battle ends up the two battles end up joining each other at some point, and Yara ends up being reunited with her lost tribe. And like I said, they are, along with Cassie Sandsmark and Donna Troy, who also happen to be here fighting. But the whole thing gets dealt with slight help thanks to Cassie Sandsmark. And like I said, whatever happens in the midst of the fights. And again, like I said, it ends up going into whatever this Amazon Trial of the Amazons event is going to be when it comes up. So let's see. Robin number 10 is actually my last book. Have you read this? Because I know you had been reading this. I don't know if you read this one.
I skimmed this issue, but you can speak freely.
Okay. Essentially, as I where did I put the doggone Thin Man? There we go. Bing. Let's see. Joshua Williamson's writing this. Pencils by Roger Cruz. Inks by Noam Rapmund. That's a typo there. Colors by Luis Guerrero. And letters by ALW's Troy Pateria. So, at the end of last issue, which I think we have decided that this was a filler issue, but there is some information to be gleaned out of this, and that is a little bit more information that we knew about, or if anybody knew about, I assume, to the great grandparent of Damian Wayne, aka the Ra's or Ra's al Ghul, depending on how you say it, mother. We find out how she became the way she is and how she ended up being on the island that she's on right now, and pretty much the purpose of what she was doing while she was on the island. But at the end of this issue, let's just say a war gets restoked, thanks to the interest of Ra's al Ghul. To what extent we'll see going forward. So yeah, like I said, there was a purpose here, but it was like it was kind of distracting from, well, not distracting, but it was kind of taken away from where the story had been going. But I guess it was in service as to kind of establishing this and then get back to it. So there is that. There is that, and that is it for. Well, I skimmed through Teen Titans Academy number 11, and I feel like that's kind of catching up to Future State, where we know what happens in this Future State, but also kind of goes slightly past it. It seems like, but I'm vaguely remember what happened in that Future State issue to recall that completely. And that might be the end of that thing, but I'm not sure. I think there might be more to it, but I'm sure. I forgot to look at the last to see if there was any more on that last page, but it is what it is. And that is it for me. So, clicks of the week.
Clicks of the week.
I think they also gloss over who Red X is, but we kind of find out who that is in that Future State Teen Titans Academy book, but they do kind of re-go over that and what, or another version of what happens at the end of that, I think. So anyway, clicks of the week. I think we pretty much got our. Well, first we'll get to Dirt's, then we'll do ours, because I feel like we have ours totally in hand. I think that's funny. That's apparent. So Dirt, and I don't think I pulled this one because I wasn't expecting any side pulls like this. But regardless, Duel number 1 from, I'm going to pull this up real quick. He sent us a link. From Bliss on Tap Publishing. Let's see. He said the print comes out. The print is out this week, and I guess it goes on digital next week. But he said, well, according to this thing, it says, are you ready to duel? And that kind of puts me in mind of a Yu-Gi-Oh, but that's just me.
That's true.
In the first issue, we meet an FBI agent tasked with investigating the mysterious deep website Duel.global, which pits his growing number of subscribers against each other in real life in a race to stop a high schooler who is challenged the site's highest ranking dueler in a match to the death. So kind of sounds like a video game, kind of sounds like some anime that I'm sure we've run across at one point in time. So, but yeah, that's Dirt's particular click of the week. And ours, matter of fact, hang on real quick. I will just like, yep. If you're watching the video version, you can see the cover for it right there. The other way. I'm gonna get my thing straight. So, but for ours, or I'm not gonna speak for myself, but I think it's fairly safe. It's safe to say it's Mary Jane and Black Cat number 1 Beyond.
Yeah, I was about to say I totally said mine already. So Roddykat is in fact concurring with my choice this week.
Yes. Yeah, I feel like I was already there before even coming into the thing, but I didn't really pull it out. I didn't put it out on the sheet just in case, Amazing might have tipped it. Even though Amazing was actually a good compliment to this, but no, it's definitely this one. That being said, we are going to go into the news section, but first, an ad read.
All righty. Our first ad read of the show is for Funko, Fun at First Sight. It's your home for exclusive collectibles such as their world-famous pop vinyl bobbleheads, apparel including t-shirts, hats, and socks, and brand merchandise including their custom DIY pop figures. And now the listeners of the Comic Book Chronicles can enjoy 10% off your entire purchase when shopping at Funko. To place your first order with 10% off and to help keep our show free for you, go to our network website. Please go to our network website at cspn.us. That's cspn.us. Then click on the Keep Our Podcast Free link that is there at the top of the page. From there, scroll down to the Funko link and place your order. When you get to the checkout, put in the offer code SHOP10 SHOP10 for your 10% off discount. Funko through CSPN.us. Do it today. And now we get into the news.
And as we do about this time, we get into the cinematic news. Pew. First up, One Piece anime returns to Toonami. Apparently. So the programming block confirmed the Straw Hats Pirates return with an announcement on its official Facebook page. In early January, Toonami announced that it was planning on adding a new anime series to its schedule every week for the next quote-unquote month or so. The programming block previously revealed 2 of those series, the second season of the sci-fi comedy Assassination Classroom and the critically acclaimed fantasy adventure Made in Abyss. Excuse me. The series will begin this new run on American TV with the first episode of the return to Sabaody. I guess that's the One Piece arc, which also marks the beginning of the second half of the series. The network will air One Piece's 517th and 518th episode back to back on January 23rd, which has already happened, by the way, folks, at 1:30 a.m. Eastern. So that has already started happening. 517 episodes. That's ridiculous. And I know there's more than that because it's like almost 700-800, probably close to 1,000 at this point. So, next up.
Yeah, it's a bit much to get into. I know it's very popular.
Yeah.
Speaking of very popular, the highly anticipated Jujutsu Kaisen Zero movie is heading to Western theaters on March 18th, 2022. The film, which already debuted in Japan last December, is finally heading to theaters across the US and Canada. The dark fantasy film from Toho Animation will be available in both English dub and subtitles, and it will arrive in more than 1,500 theaters nationwide. The film's going to go to the UK and other Western territories at a later date, which means that the streaming release is still in the future after that theatrical release.
Sadly, this is the way.
Yeah, that's are you up on Jujutsu Kaisen?
Yes.
Okay.
Mhm.
So, yeah, we'll get to. I was about to say we'll get to our anime update maybe later.
Yeah, I mean, well, this would be one of the times to do it because I think that's pretty much the bit of well, there's a little bit in the news. Regardless, at least one of Peacemaker's cast is slated to return in a DCEU film. Apparently, James Gunn said that at least one character from the HBO Max series will appear in a future DC extended universe film. "Quote unquote" is the part of the DCU. I mean, they can use these characters. I mean, one of these characters. Which people have kind of figured out. One of these characters is used in a future big DC movie that's from here. Gunn said on the Hollywood Reporters podcast. So we are connected to all of this. Who knows what role these characters are going to play in the future? I mean, no one knew the Guardians of the Galaxy were, and all of a sudden they're massive players in the Avengers, Endgame and Infinity War. I guess that's true. So. Who knows what's going to happen with Peacemaker in 10 years, 5 years, or whatever. I feel like he probably does know, because I think they're doing another spinoff, aren't they? Or he's definitely doing another DC show, but as opposed to who is, okay. So apparently,
yeah, he's just teasing it. He's teasing it. He knows who it is.
Right. So apparently, this comes after rumors that Amelia Harcourt, played by Jennifer Holland, and again, not so surprising there either way, and Peacemaker would appear in Black Adam, which is set to premiere in theater. Well, I guess it's kind of simple because I don't think he has anything to do with Black Adam. Now that I think about it. So I was about to say, if it was his movie, then that makes sense. That is his wife, after all. But yeah. So there's that, and then they mentioned a couple of other people, but that is that. Next up,
Next up, so this is a link to an article from the Hollywood Reporter that is kind of a lengthy interview with the actor Chukwudi Iwuji, who plays Mern on Peacemaker. And he also, in this article, talks about a complex character that he's going to be playing in Guardians of the Galaxy. So um, talk about James Gunn, using the same stable of actors for multiple projects. Because in this article, Iwuji says he literally went from dancing on the soundstage, with that's a reference to the opening credits for Peacemaker, to James Gunn telling him, "Come over here. I want you to be in Guardians of the Galaxy 3." So that's pretty cool for him, at least.
Yeah.
And we still don't know who he's playing.
Right. And honestly, part of me reading this thought, like, wait, I thought he wasn't doing Guardians of the Galaxy 3. James Gunn, that is.
No, they brought him back to do that now that he's been reinstated at Marvel.
Yeah. So, okay. So yeah, I guess we'll find out at some point who's gonna play in Guardians. And yeah, this again, no surprise, James Gunn using his own stable, because he has been, this whole time. Like we famously, his brother's been in a lot of his stuff, or at least Guardians of the Galaxy and Suicide Squad.
Sure.
So, and actually probably other movies, regardless. Next up, and not the first director to do this. Obviously, there are people who uses their own stable of people repeatedly, so not that big of a surprise. Well, Sylvester Stallone, I guess, fits in that also, because in a way, because of her Guardians and Suicide Squad. Anyway, all the changes made from the comic book in episode 1 of Naomi, and this is a spoiler alert, but I'm not even going to go through all of this. So if you, as I said earlier, been watching this Naomi show, and it's kind of quite CW, and this article kind of goes into some differences between, or at least at the time of this article, the first episode of Naomi and the comic books. Which I won't go into too far into, but there are definitely differences. Even I know that, not even reading the comic book, or haven't read the comic book yet, but it is a decidedly different thing. So, but you can go check that out in the show notes if you are so inclined. Next up, as Superman and Lois' second season rolls on, Jenna Dewan Tatum's Lucy Lane had her backstory rewritten in a heartbreaking manner. So this is spoilers for the ongoing Superman and Lois season 2, and this is spoilers specifically for episode 2, which aired last week. And I'm not going to spoil it, but if you are up on this, it is apparently Lucy's undergone a drastic makeover, which is revealed when Lois ran into trouble at the Smallville Gazette. Okay. Dun dun dun. Surprised and kind of slightly surprised they brought that character into this universe, because I know it's a different one than the Supergirl one. So.
Oh, you mean Lucy, the Lucy Lane?
Yeah, I mean it's the same woman, same character, same woman. I think. I mean,
it's the same actress.
Same actress, yes.
Okay.
But yeah, like I said, they changed it from Supergirl to here. Apparently, I've not been watching this show, so I did not know that, but I do know it's the same character, or same woman.
Got it. Got it.
Batgirl enlists Ivory Aquino to play DC's film's first trans character. She will apparently play. She's joined the cast of Batgirl and will appear as Elisa Yao or Yo, the best friend of Barbara Gordon, Batgirl. So that's cool to see. Aquino is known for her work in the 2017 LGBTQ rights miniseries When We Rise, which aired on ABC and saw her portray trans rights activist Cecilia Chung. Word of her Batgirl casting has been speculated about online after star Grace shared Leslie Grace, that is, shared a photograph of the two of them together in an Instagram story earlier this month. So cool. That's awesome. Next up.
The Batman, no, not the cartoon, but the movie. So promotional materials for the Batman movie have seemingly revealed when tickets for the film will go on sale. A TV spot for the Batman, which was posted on Twitter by the Batman Film News via a link, reveals the on-sale date as February 10th. The spot itself features a voiceover from Selena Kyle, Catwoman, aka Zoe Kravitz, in this film, and shows a few quick cuts of scenes from the film. Okay. Yeah, I don't know if I'm going to be opening night for that. We'll see.
Yeah, I'm not seeing that happening either. Even if things, honestly, even if this suddenly changed for the better, I still wasn't really seeing that. So, I don't know. Wait, didn't it? Because hold on a second. Okay, this one's not going to HBO Max right off the bat, correct? Because I feel like there's at least
right. My understand. No, I was about to say my understanding was that was just for 2021.
I know, but I feel like there was one that's. I thought there was one that, well, Matrix, that was the one that came out this year that was still a part of that, and I think that might have been the last one because I thought there was like at least one.
No, Matrix dropped in 2021, like at the end. It was like between Christmas and New Year's.
Okay, well, time, folks.
Yeah, that I can tell you specifically because I remember being invited to go see that opening night.
Right.
The Matrix movie in theaters, and it just happened to drop between Christmas and New Year's. So I have a frame of reference for that at least because my own sense of time is also warped.
Yeah, but I feel like still yet. I feel like there was another one that was supposed to. And now I know the Batgirl one is definitely, but that's wasn't slated to go to the theaters. That's just HBO Max. But I thought there was one that was still doing the whole day and date thing.
No, I get it,
but I could be wrong. Regardless. It's still coming. And speaking of the Batman, the Batman's director on building a new Batcave and the Batmobile. So apparently, according to this article, the Batman is set to take a more realistic approach to the Dark Knight, and that extends to the Batmobile and the Batcave too. During an interview with Esquire UK, director Matt Reeves explained his take on Batman's iconic vehicle. Quote unquote, the Nolan films established the Batmobile as a tank, which was a brilliant idea, he said. But I thought, wouldn't it be cool if the guy is a loner and a gearhead and fashioned these things by himself, taking parts from other cars and kit cars. So it's recognizable as a car this time, but it's like a muscle car, one that he's made himself. And I guess this article goes on to it does state more differences between Nolan's Tumbler and this here vehicle. So sure, all right, cool. Next up,
so this is just an article, kind of an opinion piece from a writer at CBR that basically talks about how Sony already has a killer send-off for Tobey Maguire's version of Spider-Man by portraying or by telling their version of the story of Kraven's Last Hunt, and by using that to give kind of a fitting farewell to the Tobey Maguire version of Spider-Man. So that's what this piece is about.
Yeah, which is kind of weird considering, I mean, they could do it, and I'm sure it would be great, but also they kind of already have something built in to do that. It's called Spider-Verse. If they wanted to go that far. But who's to say if this is even...
What do you mean? What do you mean? You mean to give Tobey Maguire a send-off?
Yeah.
Oh, I see what you mean. No, I mean, I get why this piece was written.
Sure.
Because, there are still a few kind of Spider-Man story arcs that people just know by name.
Right.
And Kraven's Last Hunt is one of them. And everyone's kind of looking for a way to adapt that particular story. So.
Sure. But also Kraven was supposed to have a movie, but technically that could have been it.
Unlikely. That would have been like a precursor, like a whatchamacallit, a standalone before going into Last Hunt. I would think so. Yeah. If they were going to do a Kraven standalone.
You would think, but also this is not the first time they're like, well, okay, we're just gonna blend this origin with some other stuff that happened later on in whatever character storyline. So they could
Yeah.
totally
No,
do
that's definitely true. But
So.
but yeah, I mean, that was my understanding of the situation, is that if it
Right.
was going to be a Craven movie, it would have been separate from Last Hunt.
Right.
Like they would have told a different story.
Right. So yeah, but again, this is all speculation, and this piece is saying, this is not saying that this is a definite thing.
Right.
It's just what.
Right. It's not news. That's me being editorializing.
Well.
I mean, that's me editorializing. Go ahead.
Anyway, let's see. Sony will start production on the Spider-Man spin-off movie Madam Web soon, apparently, or at least this is rumored anyway. It looks like Sony Pictures is pretty far along in the development of Spider-Man spin-off Madam Web. In fact, according to superhero movie insider Charles Murphy, which made me think of Charlie Murphy, who is passed. The studio is set to start production on it this year. I assume this is from some rumor site, I guess. But Murphy said in a tweet that it sounds like that, quote unquote, it sounds like Sony is planning on to get Madam Web going this year, and then have a location but no date. So again, this is rumor. We don't know. Like, we know there's a bunch of stuff up in the air, and don't take this as what it is. It's still a rumor at this point. There is, as far as we know, no confirmation of anything. However, next up.
So this is news. This is interesting. This is something I did not know, that the entire script for Spider-Man No Way Home actually is now online, released through Deadline as part of its Read the Screenplay series. And in it, it also reveals what some characters were called in the movie. And I'm like, the script is online now? Mm-hmm. So I take it that, or at least part of the script.
No, the whole
script. Oh, no, it's the entire script? Holy cow. Oh, it's codenamed Serenity Now. I love it. I love it.
I have downloaded this thing, and I have not poured through it, but I definitely.
Oh, I am going to download this thing right now. Holy cow. That's insane. So I am glad that Roddykat has now watched this movie before this was released, or before he looked at this, I presume. I hope.
Well, I wasn't gonna. Yeah, if I hadn't, I wasn't gonna actually. I was still gonna download it, but I wasn't gonna look at it.
Yeah. Oh my god. That would have sucked really hard. Holy cow!
Because the first page doesn't really say anything. It's just like it basically gives, like, as this article shows. Actually, the article doesn't even show, but basically gives that script name that you said and who's behind it. So
that's insane.
So yeah.
That is insane. I'm scrolling through this now. I can't believe what I'm looking at.
I mean, it's not, again, not the first time scripts have gone online, or whether,
yeah, but for a movie that's only been out for like a few months.
And that is also, that part is true. Yes.
That's the part that I find most surprising.
Yeah. But yeah, a lot of times you can find scripts out there, whether they were legally procured or, intentionally put out there or not. So, but this one apparently was purposely put out. So, if you are a fan of scripts and script writing and want to pour through it, and you've seen the movie, if you're interested in it, hey, it's out there, folks.
Right. Because if you're not interested in it and you want to read it just to see what this, what this particular movie that has garnered, pretty much universal acclaim, what the screenplay looks like, then fine.
Yeah.
But
there are people
at the end of the day, right? Exactly. At the end of the day, if you haven't watched it, you're kind of, you're kind of messing with your own personal experience.
Yeah. Which,
if you're reading this, so
right, if you would have better sense to not do that if you were bothered by that sort of thing, but nevertheless, like I said, in the show notes, folks, you can go check that out. Next up, though, speaking of Spider-Man No Way Home, Spider-Man No Way Home director reveals quote-unquote therapy session held for Tom Holland, Andrew Garfield, and Tobey Maguire. The reason why I plugged this in here was because this article, which is part of an interview with John Watson Variety, he basically talks about first day of shooting, that kind of stuff. But also in this article down in here, he talks about the storyboarding and the issues with COVID that they have to deal with, and various things round about that. But also goes into explaining the meaning behind the titles of the three movies. And I feel like that, in as much as is interesting to me as the stuff surrounding, him getting all of the Spider-Man together and kind of chopping it up when they started production on this. I won't go into what that says, but you can read it for yourself in the article. But it does. There's kind of a brief explanation about the intentions behind the titles of the movies. We knew there was a theme to it, but wasn't sure quite what the theme was overall. So there you go. Again, show notes. Have at it.
Next up, so Disney Plus's hub for the MCU has now added every Marvel one-shot short. So you can get every Marvel one-shot short now available on Disney Plus. So we've had access to some of these previously, but some of them we have not had access to without having purchased like a Blu-ray in the past. So it's interesting that we've got access to, I think all of them now.
Pretty much, yeah. Like from what I could tell, everything is there as it should be, or that as far as because I can't think of anything that's missing. So,
right, they haven't done one in a while, right, according to this article, but it's not for lack of wanting to do it.
Right, there's mostly most of these are coming from like phase 1 projects, probably phase 1, phase 2, but So,
right, because I think they said the last one was from 2018. But ultimately, at least according to Louis D'Esposito, the co-president of Marvel Studios, that they want to do it, they just don't have, they're just so busy.
Mm-hmm. To which, at this point, are they needed? Not really, but hey, they were fine. I was watching Shang-Chi, and the one that had to do with the Trevor character was already up there before they put this together.
Right.
And we watched that silliness.
True enough.
So anyway, moving right along, and also the A.G. Carter one shot is also there, but I don't think the show is there. But that's beside the point. Anyway, next up. Marvel's Secret Invasion is reportedly almost finished filming. Again, this is a report, not necessarily a hard and fast thing, so it could still be rumored. But we do know they have started filming. So we don't know how far along they are. And again, this comes from the same dude from earlier that was mentioned earlier. So don't know if it's accurate, but who knows. Next up.
All righty. So, Eternals visual FX supervisor Stefan Soretti might have just confirmed that Dane Whitman's Black Knight will appear in the new Blade movie. In an interview with comicbook.com, Soretti discussed the magical ebony blade and his additional supervisor who's now working on Blade. Quote, "The funny thing is, my second on the show, which is Martin Larson, my additional supervisor, is actually going to be supervising Blade very soon." So Soretti told him that giving that to you as a gift, use it wisely and make good out of it, but he's sure that it's going to do actually even better. And so what's implied is that it is the result of the Kit Harington and Blade voice cameo at in the post-credit scene of Eternals. Spoilers for Eternals.
Sure. We still don't know the connection between those two characters because, they don't seem like they would initially go together. But
it wasn't Blade born in England, or I thought he was born in New York City, but I know they've changed it. a couple
That's
times.
just it. They might end up changing it because I believe he was born in as of the Wesley Snipes movies. I believe he was born in New York City.
Oh, is that what it is? Because apparently,
I believe.
In the comics, he's born in England.
Right.
So I think that's probably what it is.
Yeah, like I said, don't quote me on it, but I feel like I remember one of the Blade movies kind of going back to his origin, and I believe he was technically born in
New York, right?
Yeah,
that's what I'm remembering exactly.
Right.
That's what I'm remembering, and not being all that familiar with the Blade character up until then. So it's interesting. It'd be interesting if they kept him in Britain for that purpose, at least for a little while, and had like roots for him to revisit.
Sure.
You know, because he doesn't have to. You know, because whatchamacallit, they wouldn't have to. They may not necessarily force Mahershala Ali to take on a British accent, but at least they would preserve that part of the character's history,
right,
and origin to give him a reason to be in England.
Right, and they definitely didn't at the end of Eternal. Spoiler alerts if you haven't seen it, which by the way, it's out on Disney Plus, so you can go watch that. Which I have recently rewatched. So yeah, like I said, you can, how they end up doing that. Yeah, I was thinking like they could. I know I've seen videos on this also, but they could also tie Blade to Moon Knight because it sounds like there have been theories that are tying Moon Knight to Eternals some kind of way. I haven't watched those videos, but I've seen them out there. Actually, I take it back. I did watch one, but I don't think I paid attention. Regardless, this is the thing. That's a thing. We'll see what comes out. What it comes out to. Star Trek Picard welcomes back TNG's Whoopi Goldberg in season 2 trailer. So the new preview for Picard's ongoing adventures reveals that Guinan, the H's El-Arian bartender and the starship captain's most trusted confidant, will return to give her old friend some much-needed advice during the series' next season. The trailer shows that Guinan is once again running a bar, this time on Earth. The character was originally introduced in Next Generation second season and played a key role in several of the series' most famous episodes, including the time-traveling two-parter Times Arrow, which kind of came out of nowhere, and I don't think it ever explained that where the character came from, because I just remember she just showed up one day, and I know Whoopi Goldberg is a big Star Trek fan, so that's not that. But like where did this kind of character just come from out of nowhere? But it never really got into that. So regardless, but we do know that Guinan and Q don't like each other, and Q is going to be a part of Star Trek Picard season 2. So there you go. And I'm kind of looking forward to that, actually. Despite whether the show is actually needed or not, I'm kind of looking forward to watching that. Which is going to be March 3rd when the new season starts of Star Trek Picard season 2.
Next up, in somewhat surprising news, Paramount delays Mission Impossible 7 and 8 nearly a year each. Paramount Pictures and Skydance announced that Mission Impossible 7 and 8 will both be delayed until 2023 and 2024, respectively. So now the new release dates will be July 14th, 2023 and June 28th, 2024. Part of this is obviously understanding why, this is possibly delayed because, the production struggled during some of the earlier, more intense parts of the COVID-19 pandemic. And now we're having issues, obviously, with people going to movie theaters. So that makes some sense.
But nevertheless, we are going to get more Mission Impossible movies. And I love those movies, so I'm not even tripping, but I'm like, they've still been good so far. Reasonably good so far. How long that's going to last, we don't know.
Right.
Before we start getting into a Fast and Furious situation, which again, still good, but getting a little long.
Yeah, it's, there's definitely, there are good Mission Impossibles and bad Mission Impossible. Same with Fast and Furious. As much as I like to say that's my guilty pleasure movie viewing. So yeah, that's generally when you get that much of the product, that's generally how it goes.
Yeah, indeed. That's not necessarily comic book stuff, but sometimes we, with the Fast and Furious, sometimes we divert just slightly because it's fun, pop culture stuff. Transfer. Well, wait, this is a weird article here. No, it's not a weird article, but Paramount delays. Nope, that's the wrong one. Paramount sets its sight on new dates for animated Transformers and Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles movies, and this is basically coming from in case you missed an article from Gizmodo. So basically, as a part of the same reshuffling such as the likes of Mission Impossible that we just talked about, a brand new animated Transformers movie has been given a July 19th, 2024 theatrical release date alongside Seth Rogen's animated TMNT project, which is now slated for August 4th, 2023. I don't remember if we heard about anything of a new Transformers movie. Oh, well, a new animated Transformers movie. Let me rephrase that. So this is slightly news to me. Unless we talked about it before and then just blocked it out. One of the two. Who knows?
No, I think it's news. I don't recall.
Yeah. And more likely it's probably Cyberverse. Who cares? But, I mean, if it's not, then we'll see as time gets closer, I guess. Next up, though.
Next up, a production notice for Disney Plus's Star Wars series Ahsoka reveals plenty of new information about Rosario Dawson's upcoming Mandalorian spin-off. So the show is due to start shooting in Los Angeles this month, according to this listing posted in Reddit. Rosario Dawson, Hayden Christensen, Natasha Liu Bordizzo, and Ivana Sakno are listed as starring. And the plot summary introduces Ahsoka Tano, a Togruta female who was the Padawan learner. Yeah, I'm skipping past the all this filler stuff because we know it. And her destiny laid along a different path of the Jedi, blah, blah, blah. And it confirms that, excuse me, Ahsoka's on the hunt for the evil Grand Admiral Thrawn in the hope it will help her locate the missing Ezra Bridger, the young Jedi that disappeared with Thrawn many years ago during Rebels.
Yeah, aka at the end of Rebels.
Mm-hmm.
So, cool. Speaking of Ahsoka, Mary Elizabeth Winstead joins Rosario Dawson in Ahsoka. So Huntress has and Ramona Flowers has now joined the Star Wars universe, or is now joining the Star Wars universe. Says here that the actress has joined the budding cast of Ahsoka, as we've just discussed. Y'all know who that is. Hayden Christensen is reprising his role, which we already knew about. We do not know what her character, anything about her character. But the usual suspects are behind the scenes in it, that being Dave Filoni and Jon Favreau. And it looks like production begins this spring in California, with the exception of the fact that I think that last article said that they were presumably starting soon. So go figure. There you go. Next.
Is the Walking Dead universe telling one last tale about Tyrese Williams? Chad Coleman, who played the hammer-swinging zombie apocalypse survivor in seasons 3 to 5 of The Walking Dead, may be the first series starts a return for AMC's episodic anthology spin-off Tales of the Walking Dead. The first season is now in production in Georgia and will consist of 6 standalone episodes focused on new and established characters set in the world of The Walking Dead, including those who have already died on the flagship and its spin-offs. Okay.
So I guess fun fact for me, I'm pretty sure people already knew this, but I did not know this myself until I looked it up. But apparently Lauren Ridloff from The Eternals was also a cast member on Walking Dead for a couple seasons. And I think it's actually, I saw an article where she might be returning to the series. So that's interesting to me. And it kind of still goes on to the fact of, okay, well, Game of Thrones and Walking Dead, that's pretty much where they've been pulling folks from for the last few years. So they're continuing that tradition in true Marvel and pop culture fashion. But next up, though, The Matrix Resurrections, is headed to Blu-ray on March 28th. And that's pretty much all that needs to be said on that, except for the fact that
it may seem quick, but at the same time, they need to recoup some of the money from it having been the last movie release and streaming release. So they want to get it out there into the DVD world.
I guess. Yeah, I guess so. That's true. And yeah, if they're gonna make it up, that is definitely a way for them to do it, and rather sooner than later, since it's already digital. Since they've already got part of that already done, they just need to press it and put the rest of the Blu-ray extras. Which actually, if you're interested to know what the Blu-ray extras are, they are listed in this article. Which actually, if you were watching the video version, you can see said things.
Mm-hmm.
So there you go. Next.
Oh, we're transitioning.
We are to the comic book news.
Meanwhile, at the Hall of Justice.
Actually, you know what? Before we transition, you want to do our anime update now?
Sure, go for it.
So, just very quickly, you can make this a section now.
Kind of already.
So, what's that?
We kind of already have been on the low.
No, but like an official, official section, so that we have like a spot for it in the show. So last week, it's funny because we record these things basically almost a week after a lot of the new stuff comes out. At least the new stuff that I'm following. I don't know about the new stuff that Roddykat is following.
Sure.
Are you following anything new that other than Demon Slayer?
No, I think that's probably the newest that I can think of right now.
Right. So this is a new experience for me, like following anime as they release. It's not a brand new because I was following Attack on Titan, which is one of the animes that I'm following now, watching them day of release.
Mm-hmm.
So, it's a different experience, and I'm not used to the release days being like on Sunday. It's just kind of weird that, something's getting released on a Sunday, but at the same time, Walking Dead, Sopranos, The Wire, all used to get lots of prestige television on HBO on Sundays. Game of Thrones, obviously, on Sunday. So I guess I shouldn't be so surprised that we're getting new anime on Sundays here in the States. So I'm caught up on Attack on Titan and Demon Slayer. I can definitely tell you that this past episode of Attack on Titan is pivotal in terms of understanding where this story is headed, because up until this episode, I think that we were all under maybe mistaken impressions of where the story might be going, but this particular episode really sets us on the path to where this story is probably going to end. In terms of Demon Slayer, it's more. We got some interesting insight into the Sound Hashira. Tengen.
Okay, I have not watched this week's episode.
Right, that's all I'm gonna say.
Okay.
I was gonna ask if you had made it through this week's episode, but I wasn't going to spoil it because it's still so new.
Right. Yeah, because I was thinking about. I was like, well, I could wait another week and then do double up on the episodes, but but I had intentions of watching. I just hadn't. I think Demon Slayer is probably the newest thing. Like I said earlier, I've been catching up on other stuff. Like I'm almost finished. I think I got like 2 episodes on Samurai Champloo, which I don't know why I'm holding off on that before I get into My Hero, and try to finish up Dragon Ball Super, which I might try.
Gotcha. Yeah, I mean, I've actually, I've kind of put my my new anime watching on hold for a little while, and I actually went back. I'm actually in the middle of a rewatch of Haikyuu just because it's fun.
You did mention
it's just a fun. It's a fun. I'm still in the middle of it. It's just a fun show. I really should try like a new sports anime just to see how it compares, but Haikyuu is just so. What's that?
I said it probably won't compare now that you've seen that one first, but yeah.
Right. No, a lot of people, what's funny is that a lot of people said that about Attack on Titan, because a lot of people are Attack on Titan diehards, and they'll say that, well, now that you watched that, because that was essentially like the first modern anime I watched. Like I binged it so I could catch up on what I thought was going to be the the climax of the story when the season 4 was initially released, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, having done that, and I definitely had people in my anime on my anime advisory board tell me that now that I watched that, everything else may not compare favorably. I don't agree with that necessarily, but I definitely see the point, because I think the storyline is much more complex than some of the other anime that people have come up watching. Not to talk smack about Dragon Ball, but it's definitely not as complex as Attack on Titan.
Right. And yeah, I mean, I don't think everything should necessarily compare. It doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be favorable or or detract from it. It's like some things just hit differently, Like yeah, definitely Attack on Titan is one of the big current, not current, but modern, as you said, or current phase, because obviously the anime's got a long history. One of the ones that hit a lot of people strongly. In one fell swoop. We've seen that with My Hero. We've seen that with Demon Slayer to a slightly smaller extent, and Jujutsu Kaisen, but to a
yeah. I was gonna say, because Demon Slayer is so new, and there's so little of it out there, even though the manga is finished.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that Demon Slayer is in the process of having that effect.
Right, but even when it started, like people took to Demon Slayer in a big way. Like the whole thing I've seen when people started getting onto it were like just glowing all over social media about Demon Slayer when it popped off. So it's kind of having a similar effect that Attack on Titan did in a different way.
Gotcha.
And My Hero specifically, because that one definitely people were like just all over that one positively.
Right.
So, but that being said, though, we'll see about doing an official anime corner thing. We will definitely be keeping a track of it, and we do have some manga news coming up. So there is there's a thing for that.
Right, and at the end of the day, while we may be talking about new stuff that we're watching, we may be talking about rewatches, like we just did.
Yes.
So.
Oh, that's what I was gonna say. So I was gonna say that because so I want people to know that your rewatch of Haikyuu is not coming that far after your initial rewatch. So that's an important thing to note about this. That's how much this is impressed upon not only Agent 70 but other people, because Haikyuu was definitely one that people were like, "Yo, this is like especially for
this is the sports anime,
exactly, sports anime." Now, granted, people before that were on like Yuri on Ice, but that's kind of a more niche thing to certain people, to some people. But Haikyuu has been taken by a lot of people as being like just a great sports anime, or just anime in general, but definitely for sports anime.
Right. Like I know that there's a popular basketball one out.
Yes.
And I know that one of the members of my anime advisory board talked to me about that one, but then I jumped onto Haikyuu because I had read so many glowing reviews on it, and I don't regret it at all. And as Roddykat mentioned, it's not that long after my initial watch that I'm doing a rewatch, just because it's that fun, it's that good.
Mm-hmm. So that's something. Like, granted, there are people who do that kind of stuff, but it doesn't. Not everybody does that just like that quickly after initially watching a show. So
right. I need to find a sound effect for our anime corner bits. So
yeah, we'll get on that.
We'll figure it out. Maybe I'll do a rotation of some of the anime songs that are super popular. Just like a 2-second or 3-second sound effect or bit or something. Because we do have one particular sound effect that is anime based. Now I gotta find it. In
particular that I'm planning on pulling, because I think I already got it. But
well, no, I mean I already have one. I just have to find it on my board because it's just been a while since I actually played it.
I'm talking about for my own benefit. Because, like I said, this is a pretty good sting, I think.
Oh yeah, no, I got you. Because at the end of the day, I've got some stuff from Voltron, but in terms of like the more classically trained anime ears, oh man, what happened to it? I could swear I used to have a Kamehameha on my soundboard.
You did, because you feel like you
I've played it before.
Yeah, recently. Yeah.
I've played it before, so I just can't find. I'm just looking for it, and but folks, this is this is just a result of me having a very crowded soundboard. Lots of sound effects all around.
Mhm. But like I
You
said,
know?
we'll get that together for going
Mhm.
forward. So let us get back over to the comic book news.
And the transition, I'll play it again.
Mhm. Comic store publisher market shares for Q4 2021 come out, and apparently DC has gained on Marvel, according to this article. So DC Comics narrowed Marvel Comics' market share lead in Q4 2021 based on sales of comics and graphic novels tracked at point of sale by the Comics Hub system at stores selling American comics around the world, and provided to ICV2, which is this article is coming from, who kind of track that kind of stuff. I'm not going to go through all of this data because it's all data points, but basically, Marvel's still number one, DC second by a margin. Image, Boom, IDW in that order, Dark Horse, and it keeps going from there. And it breaks it down for dollar shares and percent shares that you can see in the video version of this here show. You're welcome if you are interested in that kind of stuff. Next up.
Next up, in interesting news, IDW is losing the publishing licenses to specifically G.I. Joe and Transformers. As announced by IDW, the move comes in the wake of the Hollywood Reporter reporting in December that Skybound, the imprint run by the Walking Dead creator Robert Kirkman, was in talks to pick up the license from Hasbro, the Rhode Island-based toy and media corporation. So the announcement says at the end of 2022, IDW will bid a fond farewell to the publication of G.I. Joe and Transformers comic books and graphic novels. They've had these licenses specifically for Transformers for 17 years and for 14 years with G.I. Joe Real American Hero. IDW retains Hasbro properties My Little Pony and Dungeons and Dragons comics. And I don't know about ROM Space Knight, but I know that that is also a Hasbro property.
Right. And on that note, it's interesting because as some folks may remember, Hasbro was trying to do this shared cinematic universe with all of these properties, which apparently they've gone well away from, because I don't think we've talked about that since what, 2012 or something. I don't remember when that.
Yeah, it's been a while. It's been a while. It's been on, on the wire, the news wire for a while here and there.
Mm-hmm. So we do know that there is Larry Hama's still doing his IDW his run of G.I. Joe Real American Hero over at IDW. With whatever's going to happen with that, maybe that's just going to go over to Skybound if that's the case, if they end up picking it up. And there are definitely like 2 or 3 Transformers books in addition to other crossover books and whatever that they're probably finishing up on.
Right. Yeah. The part of the announcement talks about their plans for getting through 2022 with some big milestones, like issue number 300 of G.I. Joe: A Real American Hero, with Larry Hama at the helm of the book.
Right. Oh, okay. It says here that the monthly Transformers book, which actually one of them came out this week, but I didn't get a chance to read, will wrap up by midsummer, while the Transformers Beast Wars series, which I think one came out last week that I didn't get to read, will come to its conclusion this summer also. This will lead to 2 new miniseries events, and the company will also publish a variety of special one-shot projects spotlighting heroes and villains from across Transformers history, but they've been already doing that. And like you said, G.I. Joe 300 with Larry Hama is a thing. And looks like G.I. Joe Real American Hero Saturday Morning Adventures. I do remember, I forgot about this because we did have an article on this and I totally forgot to pull that when I saw it. But yeah, Saturday Morning Adventures will offer a 4-issue send-up of the beloved 80s cartoon, and also it's being the 40th anniversary of G.I. Joe. So there you go. That is that. Now, someone asked, someone went into something about Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, but that is owned by Nickelodeon, I believe, Lock, Stock, and Barrel, if I'm not mistaken. So any licensing for that has nothing to do with IDW, if I'm not mistaken. I might be slightly wrong about that. But I'd have to look into that. I'm not going to do that right now, though. Anyway, next up. Oh, is this me? Or you?
Yep.
DC. Actually, what's up?
No, I said it's you.
Okay, I'm gonna take these next two actually because they're related. DC's VP and GM steps down after less than 2 years. So the senior vice president and general manager of DC Comics, Daniel Cherry III, has left his post after less than 2 years managing the comic book company. According to Hollywood Reporter, sources claim that Cherry's exit was a quote-unquote quitting, though his reasons for abruptly leaving are still unknown. And it kind of goes into his role and therein. But apparently there's DC also went ahead and promoted Annie DePies to SVP and general manager. So they've already got a replacement for Daniel Cherry. And it goes into what her roles is going to be in that. So whether we find out there's more to this story or not, there's a thing. So next up,
DC's next big Arrowverse crossover is unfolding in a new event series. So DC announced a new 6-issue event series titled Earth Prime, featuring completely canon Arrowverse stories and an epic crossover finale. Makes sense that they would finally do this. I don't know if they'd ever done this before, like do separate self-contained stories using only the TV versions of these characters, but I think it's a good idea for them. It's going to be a 3-month 6-issue series.
They did do an Arrow show. They did do an Arrow comic based on the characters on the Arrow show.
Okay.
So I do remember that one.
Right. I was about to say, ladies and gentlemen in the Comic Book Chronicles audience, remember who I am. I am not someone who's watching these shows. So, well, at the end of the day, this wouldn't even be something I would pick up on the stand. So,
I might not either. And I was watching the shows. So just was, but we'll see what come time. Next up though, Pink. Wait,
it's you.
Yeah, no, I thought I put that in the other thing. But anyway, how Deathstroke became the king of DC villains. And this is a setup, or it's one spoiler for Deathstroke Inc. #5, which I believe came out this week. And I hadn't had a chance to read, so we won't really go too far into this. But basically, Deathstroke's being set up as the kingpin, not that kingpin, but basically an actual king, sounds like, with an army of his own. And that, as an extension of his reign, will be the main suspect in the impending murder of Ra's al Ghul, aka Ra's al Ghul, to set up the upcoming Shadow War event, which is coming up in DC. Like I said, won't go too far much into that because I'm not sure what happens in this issue that sets that up. But I have been reading Deathstroke Inc., so we'll see. Next
up, so Gotham Girl is returning to the city of her namesake with a bold new look in the pages of Detective Comics this upcoming April. So Detective Comics number 1059 features the teen superhero, real name Claire Glover, appearing in Gotham Girl Interrupted, a backup story written by Sina Grace and illustrated by David Lapham in the pages of Detective Comics 1059. Okay.
DC is debuting a new Birds of Prey this April. The Birds of Prey are back, but not in a new series, not yet anyway. But they have an all-new, all-different team of Lady Shiva and Katana. She's got your back. We'll be leading up to a new version of the Birds of Prey, who will debut in the pages of April's Batman Urban Legends number 14. Although the two haven't been leaders of the team before, both have served as members of the popular organization. At one point, Shiva even took on the code name Jade Canary as a play on the name of a founding member that would be Black Canary. So apparently they will be joined by 2 new recently introduced characters, Miracle Molly and Ghost. But there's nothing else to really go on outside of this. Batman Urban Legends number 14 goes on sale April 12th. So look forward to that then. Next.
All right, so there is a mod to the Batman Arkham City video game that invites players to confront thugs in a Marvel and DC crossover as Netflix's iteration of Daredevil. So that's pretty funny.
Yeah. I would probably try this, honestly. I would probably look for this and try this. If you're watching the video version, you can see the GIF from the Reddit post that's showing off a little bit of gameplay of this. Yeah, still some
That's
same.
funny.
Yeah, that's pretty good. That's pretty good. Next up, though, Kate Mulgrew faces Kate Mulgrew in Star Trek Online's next adventure. So, STO developers Cryptic Studios announced that Kate Mulgrew will be making her first acting appearance in Star Trek Online, having missed out on the Voyager-themed expansion Delta Rising a few years ago. She will reprise her role as the beloved Starfleet captain, now Admiral, because at this point in that MMO, it's well past the events of Voyager and such. Anyway, in the upcoming season's Shadow Advance, although STO has played host to a litany of Star Trek stars over the years, Mulgrew joins Discovery's Sonequa Martin Green as one of the rare captains from a primary Star Trek show to have returned to their character for the long-running MMO. And yeah, that MMO has been around for a while. I love that thing. Haven't played it in a minute. But anyway. Apparently Mulgrew's not just back as Janeway, but will also be Janeway of the Mirror Universe, and some other folks from Discovery and Deep Space Nine will also return as characters, both Mirror and at least one not. So cool. That's cool. I may check that out. Or wait, is it out already? Oh, apparently it's set to release. It's already released. It is released to PC players as of this recording and will be on consoles in March. So cool. Maybe possibly check that out at some point. Next.
All righty, publisher Electronic Arts announced several new Star Wars games from developer Respawn Entertainment. The upcoming games, which currently do not have official titles, will span a variety of different genres. Respawn Entertainment will play a key role in the development of each project, which includes a new first-person shooter, a real-time strategy game, and a direct sequel to the critically acclaimed Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order. Okay.
Oh, and speaking of that, we forgot to mention this in Boba Fett. The droid that is your companion in Jedi Fallen Order was that little small droid that shows up at the beginning of, well, not at the beginning, when Peli gets attacked, which we didn't talk about in this week's Book of
Oh, you mean the one that's being chased by the Womp Rat?
Right.
Okay.
That droid.
I've never played the game, so I'm not familiar.
I remember seeing it. I totally forgot. Yeah, because I think I played a little bit of it. Actually, I've seen a lot of it, but I haven't played a whole lot of it. But I have seen that droid from this, and that's where it comes from. So there was that, and I think there was another reference to Fallen Order in this episode. So that episode kind of pulled from a couple of different places. But yeah, so there's going to be, I think they said something about a real-time strategy game, another Jedi Fallen Order, and some other game that hasn't been announced yet. So we'll see. Respawn's been busy, Apex Legends and whatnot. No Titanfall 3 sadly yet, but hopefully at some point. Anyway. And speaking of Star Wars, Bo-Katan and the Night Owls getting hyper-realistic Mandalorian Hot Toys figures. So, Katie Sackhoff's Bo-Katan Kryze and other members of the Night Owls are getting hyper-realistic Mandalorian Hot Toys, as I just said. Sackhoff first made, well, we already know where she comes from in the Clone Wars line of things. Blase, blase, blase. It looks like the Bo-Katan figure will retail for $285. Hot toys are expensive. Hot toys are figures are expensive because of the articulation and whatnot they put in, the detail they put into it. While Casca will retail for $270 and Axe Wolves for $235. The former of which is expected to ship between April and June, while the latter two are expected to ship between April and June of 2023. And you can see images below, and there you go. There's them all together. There's Bo-Katan. There's another Bo-Katan shot. There's Casca. Yep, a couple of Casca. There's Axe Wolves or Wolves, whatever. And there you go. They look good, but those are expensive. But again, like I said, hot toys are expensive. So next up.
Alrighty, so the upcoming conflict between the Avengers and the Eternals might have just been quietly spoiled by a story focusing on a minor hero's future. So this is spoilers for Marvel Voices Heritage #1, which came out last week, I think. Or maybe 2 weeks ago?
Something like that, yes.
Right, I remember flipping through it, right? And kind of being surprised by the timeline. So, and that's what this article is about. So the story titled American Eagle Not Dead Yet by Stephen Paul Judd, David Cutler, Jose Marzan Jr., and Paris Alani quietly features a hint that the upcoming conflicts between the Avengers and the Eternals will end in victory for Earth's mightiest heroes. So, it's a hint at it. We're not sure if this is a canon story. That's what the kicker is.
Right. So, but I guess we'll find out more to the point when that happens. This next article, we kind of already talked about this, or at least I mentioned it. So a fan favorite Spider-Man costume makes an amazing comeback, which like I said, the bombastic Bagman showed up in in Amazing Spider-Man. Also reusing that whole I'm not Deadpool shirt, which I thought was kind of funny. I don't know.
Oh, is that what the t-shirt said? I thought it says I'm not Daredevil.
So I mean, one of them he was wearing because he changed clothes because they went through different days and that thing. So, and one of them was the I'm not Daredevil shirt, or was a I'm not Daredevil shirt. It wasn't the specific one, but definitely a shirt. So that was kind of funny. It doesn't really, it just really just shows the cover. It doesn't really show some of that stuff. But yeah, that's a good issue also. Anyway, next up.
The Scarlet Witch, Wanda Maximoff, has a brand new Marvel comic book status quo. So this is a result of what's happened in the books, The Trial of Magneto and the Darkhold miniseries. And that's what this article talks about.
To which we've talked about both of those series, one probably more than the other, but yeah, some things have happened in those particular things. I still need to go back and finish that Darkhold one, I guess. But yeah, definitely in Trial of Magneto, some shit happens. Marvel announces a new Daredevil series debuting this summer. Going to be written by Chip Zdarsky with art by Marco Cicchetto. It says that Daredevil #1 will pick up on the plot threads from the current Devil's Reign event. And apparently, Zdarsky says that getting to write Daredevil and work with Marco is a career highlight. I'm just genuinely excited that we get to continue our epic story with this new issue #1. And it says Matt and Elektra have confronted their past mistakes with Devil's Reign and Women Without Fear. But can they atone for them all together? Dun dun dun. So there's that. Does it say when? June. Next up.
A concept art cover for What If Miles Morales reflects the tragic events that turned a variant of the Spider-Verse star into Wolverine. So in March, what if Miles Morales puts a new spin on the Spider-Verse star by turning his variants into costume crusaders reminiscent of other superheroes? And this is just a tease of stuff that's been solicited for March.
Mm-hmm. It's kind of sad. I kind of like this design slightly better than the current costume. Slightly. Cowboy
Oh, then the
Bebop's...
Miles costume?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cowboy Bebop's comic adaptation drops a jazzy first trailer, which actually that came out this week. Now that I think about it, that particular issue. So Titan Publishing's tie-in comic for Netflix's Cowboy Bebop, that's a thing to note, has received a jazzy trailer showing Spike Spiegel, Jet Black, and Faye Valentine causing chaos in a casino as they hunt their latest bounty. Written by Dan Waters and illustrated by Lamar Matherin. Cowboy Bebop, the comic series, will run 4 issues, with issue number 1 being released. It was released this week. After a 1-month delay, when it was previously announced for a December release, when Cowboy Bebop actually released on Netflix. So, if for those keeping track, this is a comic book adaptation of it's a comic book adaptation of a Netflix show that was adapted from an anime, which actually has manga adaptations, but came out around the time of the original running of the original anime. But that's beside the point. So this is layers, folks. Layers. Whether I'm actually reading the thing or not, who knows? But it's out there, folks. Next up.
Alrighty. Next up, Viz Media debuts the first 8 chapters of JoJo's Bizarre Adventure Part 6 Stone Ocean manga digitally. So it's it's available through its Shonen Jump service. The company's website and app both state a new chapter will be available in 7 days. Okay. Oh yeah, that's the news.
Pretty much.
I'm just looking at the history of what their releases were. That's what the rest of the article is.
Yeah, and they haven't announced a hardcover. That's pretty much that. But also, there we go, JoJo's. You could throw one of those in there for an anime sting. But a T-Rex attacks the Morphin Masters in preview for Power Rangers Universe number 2, which I believe also came out this week, and neither one of us were reading. So yeah, this is the week of the launch of Power Rangers Universe number 2, where we get to learn more about the origin of the Phantom Ranger, as well as the Morphin Masters. Boom Studios has released a preview for this issue, and it's not, well, wow. According to this article, it's not very exciting since the Morphin Masters are just trying to recover the Morphin Knot and get out of there. Wendy does show up to help them as a T-Rex, but then she attacks them, so that's not great. So I guess spoilers for that. If you're actually reading that, but the rest of the article kind of goes into the preview, so you can go check that out if you are if you're interested. Next up,
Graphics. The company Graphics will publish Kat Fajardo's middle grade graphic novel Miss Quinces in both English and Spanish on April 5th. The first time the publisher has released a novel in both languages on the same day. The main character in Fajardo's story, a girl named Sue, had plans to go to sleepaway camp with her friend over summer vacation, but instead ends up going to Honduras with her family to visit relatives. Once they're there, her mother announces Sue will be having a surprise quinceañera, the traditional 15th birthday party that marks a girl's transition to womanhood. Sue's not on board with this plan, but she has to figure out how to deal with her family's demands while keeping her own sanity. This is a 256-page graphic novel with an MSRP of $12.99 and the hardcover with an MSRP of $24.99. Okay.
Cool. Image Comics turns 30 in 2022, and there's got a lot of books slated to come because of it. We already have the Return of Saga, which is this week.
30 years for Image. Oh my god.
I know, right? That's kind of crazy. Which you know what I've been meaning to watch. Speaking of, on the side note, that Image documentary from like years ago. I know it's out there on YouTube and other places, but that's something I've been curious to watch. But at any rate, like I said, Saga came out this week. There's an official Image Comics timeline, which is going to come out next month. Well, I believe Walking Dead is coming back. Well, I'm not sure if it's coming back, but yeah, there's a new Witchblade series coming out by Margaret Bennett and Aria Christantina. The Walking Dead does return with a Walking Dead Clementine, which is a trilogy of original graphic novels, and that's the character from the video game, not from the show, with writer-artist Tilly Walden. Rob Liefeld Prophet returns, which apparently is going to be turned into a live-action movie with Jake Gyllenhaal, apparently. Astro City's coming back. Jim Valentino's Shadowhawk returns. A lot of the stuff I have no idea about. I knew The Darkness by Mark Silvestri is going to happen, and Christopher Mittens is going to be the artist. The original Cyberforce is back in print after 20 plus years, plus a bunch of prints for what it sounds like they're doing, or possible reprints and stuff of early stuff, including the next article, which is, go for it.
As Image Comics' 30th anniversary approaches, the publisher is launching a new anthology titled Image! Exclamation point. Set to spotlight popular creators. A few of the creators connected to the limited series include Jeff Johns, Ed Brubaker, Matt Fraction, and Kelly Sue DeConnick. Yeah, that's pretty much the news.
Yeah. Basically, yeah, it's some sort of anthology thing, and yeah, it's coming. Oh yeah, Invincible also was a Image thing by way of Skybound.
Yeah.
So
yeah, they're gonna have some new stuff. They have plenty of new stuff in there too. So,
right. And yeah, and this particular anthology is going to debut in April. Sounds like, and it's a limited series. So there you go.
Mm-hmm.
And that's it for the news, folks. Let's get one last ad read in.
Our last ad read of the night is for Wink. Wink is a world of wine delivered right to your door. From rosé to Cabernet to Torronté, the personalized wine club Wink has over 100 styles of wine to discover. Have you ever tried an orange wine? Wink connects you to a world of exclusive wines tailored to your taste and delivered directly to your door. Wink delivers 4 bottles of wine to you every month with free shipping. You can pick your own bottles or let Wink choose and match to your taste. It doesn't cost a thing to become a member, and you can skip or cancel anytime. And now the listeners of the Comic Book Chronicles can enjoy an exclusive discount of $20 off your first order. To place your first order with $20 off and to help keep our show free for you, go to our network website at cspn.us/wink. That's cspn.us/WINC. Wink Wines through CSPN. Do it today.
And that brings us to the end of this here Comic Book Chronicles for this week. Thank you, each and every one of you, for coming out. I have been Roddykat. You can find me at Roddykat on Twitter. You can find me at News Nerds Need on Twitter. You can find me at CBCaps on Instagram. Which I need to update because I haven't done it in a while. And I definitely have some stuff. So look out for that. Agent_70 on Twitter and Instagram. PCN_dirt on Twitter, PopCultureNet on Twitter, PopCultureNetwork.com and his umbrella sites therein. Tim, DOGG98 on Twitter, CBCron on Twitter, The Click Nation on Twitter, and of course, Tim is over at comicbook.com writing his face off. You can find this here podcast on the Coastal Podcast Network, that's CSPN.us.
Do it today.
You can also find us on your podcast place of choice, whether it be Google Play, Apple iTunes, aka Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or the Coastal Podcast Network SoundCloud page. You can find us recording every Thursday night, 9:30ish p.m. on the YouTube channel of The Click Nation. That's youtube.com/The Click Nation, and also twitch.tv/Comic Book Chronicles. Please like and subscribe. Thank you very much. And with that, we're done here. We'll be back next week. So this has been the Comic Book Chronicles. Peace.
Peace. One. Yes, I found it.